Good evening. I'd like to call this budget workshop to order, please. Angela, if we could have roll call, please.
Mayor White,
Here.
Vice Mayor Grunder,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
And Commissioner Williams has agreed to offer the invocation for us to start out the meeting.
Let us pray. Most gracious God, as we come now to discuss this budget, God, we just pray, God, just lead us and guide us, Lord. Bless us with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, God, that we'll do what's best for the city of High Springs. And again, we just want to thank you for that grace and that mercy in this wonderful city. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our only agenda item for this is update on the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. Staff has prepared a short presentation to kind of give you an overview of the budget, but we've mainly focused on 5 departments, the largest revenue, the largest budgets, the departments that have the largest budget, which are police, fire, water, sewer, and streets. Since we only have an hour, that's why we did that. And we have also, you should have a copy of the budget and a copy or a budget versus actuals so far for additional information. So just to go over our budget, this is just for the general fund. Our general fund budget is $7.2 million. The majority comes from ad valorem tax, as with other cities, followed by sales and use, licenses and permits, and intergovernmental. Those are revenues we get from the state, and charges for services. Our general fund expenditure detail, as I stated earlier, police is our largest budget, followed by public works and IT. Next is Parks and Recreation. Parks and Recreation, this is their operating. Their capital budget is wild spaces, public places. The city manager's office is next, followed by finance, UB, city clerk, planning and code, city commission, PIO, human resources. And there is a transfer of approximately $1 million to a couple different departments. Right now, I'll go ahead and let the chief come to the podium and discuss police. We just did 2 slides on each department. That way, we wanted to provide time for y'all have a question, answer, and on each slide, we kind of just broke down what the top expenditures were, and then staff went through and did another round of cuts, and that would be what the next slide is about. I just want to, again, tell you that this summer we went through 3 or 4 rounds and did significant cuts when the original budget was presented. So we feel like this is not much more bare bones than we can go. I mean, we're kind of, really, there's not anything else. But if you can find anything, please do.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Commission. As the manager stated, most municipalities and public safety accounts for a substantial portion of the budget, and it provides minimum revenues. Nevertheless, public safety, it is essential, and the financial support is a necessity. First, 76% of our budget accounts for salaries, and it accounts for benefits. And one of those key parts of that is overtime. If you looked at the budget, it says that we're 51% with the expenditure of that in this allocated time. That is somewhat deceiving because what you don't see is the billable overtime. So when we charge Chamber of Commerce, when we charge University of Florida, those things are hidden in our revenue side. And so when we look at the revenue source, the portion of that, we're well within the black of that. We are $15,750 in revenue of that perspective, and the deficit part of that is $12,500. And so we try our absolute best and especially with the conditions that we're in right now of trying to watch on overtime. And we are, steadfast in that. I look at everything that comes to our department. I'm not micromanaging, but I am signing off and looking at every expenditure and trying to look at some creative ways so that we can be good stewardships of the people's money. We've looked at reduction prior to this budget, reduction in training. That's always a bad thing in terms of not wanting to reduce down training. But I looked at what trainings we can reduce, and I kept and maintained critical and mandatory training. That's de-escalation training, firearms training, a legal update. I looked at elimination of supervisors' quarterly meeting. We don't have those. I look at email correspondence. I come out on night shift, and speak to our supervisors. So that helps us in overtime. We've looked at reduction in proactive policing. We just passed through Halloween recently, and I want to explain what we do in our enhanced patrol for Halloween. We bring out extra patrol for high volumes of vehicle and pedestrian traffic, and we also do sexual offender audits and high visibility patrol. This year, being conscious of the budget, we continued our audits, our sexual predator audits and offenders audits. But we reduce the amount of police officers out on scene. Myself, which I come out every time anyways, I am not paid at overtime. My admin sergeant, he adjusted his time out and not charged the overtime. We did not utilize too many of our school resource, and so we reduce those type of things so that we can save on the general fund side of the budget. National Night Out. Everyone knows that National Night Out. We do that every first Tuesday of August. It's a community building campaign to promote police community partnerships and neighborhood camaraderie. And so we've looked at whether we should have that. That is on the chopping blocks. We'll evaluate our budget when it comes towards August. We may not have that because that's all proactive policing and it costs us overtime. The Frozen Foot Run, that is supported through the police operations, although it's through Park and Recreation. We've had conversations and discussions. I'm not really sure if that still is occurring, but we've talked about creative ways of not supporting that or charging that to Park and Recreation, reducing the amount of officers for that. The K-9 operations, we've already retired Caesar. This was a budgetary thing when I looked at it during the summertime. And so by retiring that K-9, that helps us with the pay for the handler, it comes for the care of the dog. And so, that's a hard pill to swallow, but it was time for that dog. But we will be saving those financials until we're ready and financially able to bring back a dog. We froze the temporary, the position for a new police officer that was needed for night shift. And that was a part of the budget process to say, hey, we're not going to bring that on until late January. By doing that, we have saved 5 months. So we had a person ready to roll. That person is coming aboard here and at the end of January. And so we stopped on providing that officer and so that we can save on the general funds in that area. When it comes to budgetary overtime events, annual Christmas parade, that is a huge event for us because we bring out more than 18 to 20 police officers. Those officers require about 4 hours of overtime, and the two commanders that run it is about 8 hours for preparation. It counts about 71 to 80 hours that is usually hit with our general fund. By having discussions with the manager and CRA, we diverted those funds and took back from our proactive policing this year. And so the general funds will not be attacked in that aspect. Our annual Christmas tree lighting, we had that. We still diverted funds from CRA. We utilized patrol, myself, my admin sergeant again, our detective. We tried to be creative, not burden the public or our general funds with those resources. Memorial Day weekend. This is a big day for us, probably one of our biggest days because of all the people that come to the Springs. And so historically, probably for the last 10 years, we have brought out a significant amount of police officers to work on the Saturday and Sunday, and it has certainly saved lives and reduced the our call load for our regular patrol because it's just not possible. That's where we were at one time where our patrol officers could not handle the regular service calls and just having tens of thousands of people enter our city. And so I've looked at a creative way with that. Alachua County, there's a coalition with law enforcement, with all the agencies, Gainesville Police Department, Alachua County Sheriff's Office, every entity, is tackling traffic issues, and I wasn't a part of it, but our traffic officers were a part of the conversation about doing spot traffic enforcement in our areas. So we're going to join in an MOU with them. I've asked them that Memorial Day be a part of that, and if they do that, we would have the resources, the Gainesville Police Department, UFPD, that would reduce our need to provide policing there. But at the end of the day, we have to if they don't. These are some of the things that I can control, but there's some things I cannot control over time. If we have emergency situations, we have to be there. When it comes to court-related subpoenas, I don't have control of the courts. They subpoena the officers have to be deposed in trial. They have to be paid overtime. When there's an imminent criminal investigation, homicide, sexual assault, anything like that, search warrants, any of those elements, our investigations or extra officers have to respond out. If there is a staffing board, we have to maintain minimum staffing where there are at least 2 officers on. We're a 24 operation department, and so that minimum staffing requirement is there. And so those are some of the areas that I don't have to have control, but we do try to build that into our general fund overtime to cover. Vehicle makeup, they make up about 3% vehicle lease and vehicle maintenance. We've talked about this for a number of times, and we've said about the need to bring in new vehicles. We're not there all the way because of the pandemic. We are still waiting for about 5 other cars. This week, I had 4 cars going in the shop at one time. I have another one just went yesterday. Those 4 vehicles account for about $4,000. This is an area of maintenance. It's going to continue to rise. I have no control. It's going to continue to rise until we get those vehicles in. I anticipate those cars will come in at the beginning of March. You'll see that reduction, and we have seen some reduction in maintenance with the cars that we do have. But when these cars are 15 years old, it's every week, and that's where we're going to be. But those 4 cars, 3 of them were 2019 Chargers, and 1 was 2013 Charger. And the one from yesterday was a 2013 Ford Taurus. And I didn't look at the pricing on that one, but I'm guarantee you I probably paid $1,500, or we, the citizens. So on our contract services, this makes up about 5% of our budget, and it's with Alachua County Sheriff's Office. For the benefit that we get, it's great, and that's our dispatch services. But I put this in here just to bring up where we are looking at the budget, even monthly when it comes to me, and we found an area where I found that there's a program called Lexipo, and that was about, I think, $9,000, and it was in our training area that kind of threw red flags, but we found that that should not have been in that area, and so if you're looking at the updated copy, you'll see that that's not budgeted, but it would be an adjustment there. So if you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer. And I just want to say one thing. Those are the things that we had discussion in reducing our budget to come under the actual numbers in our budget. And so I think they are taking somewhat effect, including uniforms that we didn't add in here. We're contractually required to do so many uniforms, but we've watched and what we've purchased in there, and we'll see a savings there. But we're doing extremely, trying to be extremely frugal with the budget.
You have any questions, gentlemen? Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you much. Appreciate it.
Well, very much like with Chief Antoine, the bulk of our expenditures goes towards salaries. You can see it's about 79% of salaries, which is a combination of regular salary and overtime. I think one of the things that was glaring on ours leading up to this budget year was the fact that, am I getting too close? I speak loud anyway, was we did have an exorbitant amount of overtime this year. That's kind of a good thing. It's bad for the budget, but I view it as a good thing in that I feel confident that there were unique circumstances surrounding those, and moving forward with the into the fiscal year, provided we don't have any catastrophic events like what he was saying, we're not looking at deploying as we have in the past, so that's a substantial savings to that. So I really feel comfortable as I've spoken with Ashley and we've gone through this, the more recent opportunity to review these as opposed to the year past, is that I don't foresee us having the overtime expenditure. So whatever is allocated and what we have budgeted for the year, both the regular salaries as well as the overtime, I feel confident we will come in within those guidelines easily. So I think we have about five bullet points. Unless you have any specific questions regarding this, we'll go to the bullet points. Just like with Chief, the reduction in our service training, obviously, we provide critical services, so we have critical needs. But one of the things we're looking at doing, just like with Antoine, is looking at what we can do in-house to where we absorb all the costs in-house. It's sort of like a train the trainer, eliminate a lot of the out-of-house stuff where we're having to either pay someone to come in or pay to go somewhere, whether it's paid directly to a service or backfill. So we're going to be eliminating some of those and sticking with strictly the critical needs. We are ALS provider, as you well know, so there are some critical needs that we'll be required to do, and by state and federal law, we have those. But those are all things that are well within the budget. They're already budgeted for, so there's no need to believe that we'll be outside of any budgeted items with regards to that. The other thing, as far as a reorganization resulting in a reduction of overtime, that was really taking we had been maintained and operating with at least one open position. We took a captain's position, reduced it back down to a line position, and we were able to fill a position. So sort of a reorganization in that we eliminated a position, but we really just absorbed him into a open spot, and obviously there's which stabilized the salary overall. So now we're fully staffed, and a lot of the overtime that we were having to look at going into that open position has been absorbed by reducing or what they're calling reorganizing that position down into a line staff. So again, it puts us at par with where we expect it to be for the salaries projected for the year. All right, and it will significantly decrease the need for filling an open spot with regards to reducing overtime. That's why I feel very confident that in making that move, we're going to be on par with where we should be with regards to our salaries. Okay, the billing of overtime events. Traditionally, the big one's Pioneer Days, and then also we do EMS standby for the BMX track, if you're familiar with that. In the past, for whatever reason, we haven't billed for that. We've discussed it many times, and at this point, obviously, it's a service we want to bill for. All the rest of the things, there's very few things that we do EMS standby for. Those are the two main things, and moving forward, we'll just, as I think would be expected, we'll whatever I believe there's already a schedule similar to what the police department uses that we can bill for those services if somebody wants to choose to use them. As far as the parade goes, we're not overstaffing for the parade. We're providing the trucks, and the crew members are on duty, so they're always happy to do that. So there's no cost to the city for that. It's sort of a privilege, if you will. We look at that as a privilege. A couple of our high-end software programs for tracking, whether it's daily maintenance or various other things. I think similarly with Chief Antoine, the Lexipol is a really broad-based program. It's got a lot of levels and a lot of programs within it. We found that once we integrated that into our daily use, there are a lot of things we weren't taking advantage of. As we looked more closely at that program, which we have in-house, and it's shared with them, so there's a commonality and less of a learning curve, if you will. With that, we were able to cancel Silent Partner and Target Solutions. Target Solutions was one that we got through the county, and we use it for some station maintenance, but it's primarily tracking our training, because again, we have state, local, and federal requirements that we do. So it's incumbent upon us to track that. We found modules within Lexipol that allow us to do that. So between those two, I can tell you, the Silent Partner and the Target Solutions, the savings there was well over $5,000. And depending on how you manipulate the modules, the opportunity for them to bill us is there, and it could go up from there. So those are gone. They don't exist any longer. The Lexipol program is a very user-friendly program. We got past the learning curve. I think Chief's finding the same thing. We have a number of people too. So as far as our administrative needs for traditionally, it would have been Natalie or whatever. We've been able to share that across the board with a number of our company officers, which is also beneficial. And it sort of empowers them a little bit with regards to tracking and training and being responsible for their crews. And then one of the smaller things, there's a number of smaller things, don't want to get petty, but we did eliminate the Dish network service that we have. I think it was costing us almost $200 a month. So I don't have it at home. I don't know what a normal thing is, if that's a normal cost. Regardless, it's gone. We've just replaced it with very basic TV now, and a little bit of grumbling at first, because, the guys do live there for 24 hours, but you know what, it is what it is. But, just little things like that, some coffee fund that we have. So, sort of from the top down, we're down to, but you know what, it's a cost nonetheless, and we're more than happy to help out as much as possible. I know, unlike some of the other departments, we are running 24 hours a day, so I don't use that as an excuse. It is an opportunity for us to look at a lot more things and figure out where we might be able to do even little things. Happy to do it. Any questions? Out.
I have a question.
Yes,
I've got a
ma'am.
couple.
Please.
The boat
The boat.
that we
Yes.
own,
Uh-huh.
how much is it getting used for water rescue?
Well, I'm that guy. Right now, none. This year we had 2 call-outs, unless something while I was gone, 3. One time it actually made it into the water. The other time the victims, it was for actual victims. The victim was recovered by a neighboring agency and then safely brought to shore. The only thing I'll mention about that was the neighboring agency that was able to safely boat the victims was not able to get the victims to shore with their boat. It's a little bit different design. Now, that had more to do with not understanding the river than it did the boat. But to answer your question, so far this year, I believe we've had 2 call-outs. We haven't done a lot of training with it as yet. Does that answer your question?
Well, yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
I don't know how many hours we have on the engine, so probably not many.
No, no, just what is required. It's required to have certain number of hours for service. So far, that's all we've put on it.
And then, going along with that, the cost of that boat are all the operational costs, the insurance, the fuel, the licenses. You have to have a special license you have to maintain to operate that boat.
Correct.
Could you estimate for me what the annual cost is of just having it here?
No.
Okay.
However, that's the honest answer. Glad to get it for you.
Because to me, that seems like an obvious put it up for sale. It's a big ticket item. And, anything else that went along with it, when, you had to buy all kinds of different equipment, maintaining the captain's license, and then, do you start becoming Swiftwater? Do you have to do more training?
Yes.
I see the slippery slope being pretty profoundly potential there.
I'm not inclined to disagree with you at all.
So, and we have partnering agencies, we have Fish and Wildlife, we have other people that have been doing water rescue when needed for years.
That is correct.
And it's just a very expensive module, I would think, to maintain. Aside from the outright cost of the purchase of the boat and the motor and everything else that went along with it, the coolers and whatever you need on there.
Sure.
That to me seems like it would be an obvious thing where we could cut some costs. It's pretty new.
Yes.
Hopefully we'd get a pretty good price on a very new rescue boat.
Right. I will say, with regards to the neighboring agencies, all of the ones that we've introduced the boat to, like Game and Fresh and More Fish and whatnot, we're very excited to have it added to the capabilities of this area.
And I appreciate that.
Yes, no, I know.
But at our taxpayer dollars, it's if we have resources that are available to us, it would seem to me to be a more fiscally conservative approach to depend on those same resources that the city's always been depending So that's one thing that I would like to look at. And then the vehicles, obviously. The fire department now has 4 vehicles, is that right? That are not fire trucks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
4 SUVs, 3 new leased and the old red one. Is that correct?
Are you including the PIOs?
Yeah, I
vehicle?
assume that that's in the fire department's budget, is it not? Okay, so
No,
that's
it's
a
not.
different one.
No.
So then we have
But-
3.
But yes, but to go into minus that is 3, that's correct.
Do we need 3?
Currently,
Mm-hmm.
yes. Yeah, I don't know what changes are going to become in the future. So, I mean, the idea was to replace, just like with the chief, was to replace an older model vehicle. And then we introduced a new structure that put in place another admin person that was in fact expected to respond, just like with Bruce, at all hours of the day or night. So they're subject to recall or subject to call, period.
I would like to add on the vehicles that Thomas, I mean, we've talked about this, but Thomas is looking at them holistically citywide and trying to get all the options. And then we will be meeting, and this was always the plan because as you know, we were having trouble getting vehicles and that's how we ended up with these. So, and then we're going to go through the round where we meet with department by department. So I just don't want you to think that we're just over here chilling about the vehicles. I mean, we
And
are
that was
addressing
my
it.
understanding as well.
And, just operational cost of those vehicles, which ones would be the most cost efficient to keep? What does it cost? I don't know if each vehicle has its own fuel card. Can you track that? What does it cost to operate vehicle 1, 2, and 3? I don't think we still need 3. If we've put the captain back on the line, we don't need that third one for him, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And no offense to you at all.
None
But
taken,
in
I can
terms of
assure you.
restructuring, we restructured because the fire chief was over here part-time.
Yes.
Do we still need that structure? And that's a direct question that probably is hard for you to answer, and I appreciate your position.
And thank you very much for that. At this time, it's
At this time,
very
yes.
difficult,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
So,
Understood.
and that's why I added that. We will see in the coming
Okay.
weeks or months.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
And then we can have a more accurate, honest assessment.
Okay.
I think as we go through the process,
Right.
For the chief, and and based on who's hired, we'll have that person help.
Make that
set up the
assessment.
structure. We're trying not to change too much
Sure.
because it'll kind of be their department.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Good evening. We are working on the vehicles, trust me.
I believe you.
Matter of fact, we got a meeting that got canceled this week, but it's gonna be next week with another one. Chief Antoine's helping me, because between the two of us, we have the biggest fleet. So, let me see. This is only the first time I've seen the graphics. So, of course, like every department, your salary is always gonna be the biggest, as normal. Transfer funds, with the water and sewer, I know I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit. That's gonna be the biggest, transfer of, funding reasons in the water department. But getting back to the cuts and stuff like that, with staff and I have sat around and really hammered these out. We're looking at cutting some of the contractual services. Now we have our staff that's got licensed and certified, so we can cut some of that back where we don't have to contract out as much. And we're looking at there was a $100,000 for, I guess, a building that we're looking at building a new public works facility. So we're cutting that 100,000 out because we just don't have the funds at this time. And which that account you'll see that's in our sewer. Both of them's going to pay that 100,000, so that's 200,000. So we're going to end up cutting that one out too. So right now in training, only training will be involved will be the ones that we have to have license for, that our staff has. We're not going to put anybody else up right now. We're just going to keep our license with the guys that we have now, the staff. So that's the water part of it. I think I'll jump through that one pretty quick. As you see in sewer, same thing, city staff, and then the transfer and the bond money for the new sewer plant extension. And we're talking about, of course, the training, same thing. We're trying to do the same thing on the training part, the building. That's that 100,000 I was just talking about. And as you know, grinders, that's probably going to be a later conversation for some fees. Because it's, as you see, the billing, I mean, you see the budget, it's killing us. More and more is going out. There was 420 put in phase 1, and there was 500 in phase 2, and then phase 3 was the ones that got missed. That's about a little over 180, and phase 1 is completely gone out. I mean, that's 2004. So we're replacing them at $200 a pop, besides the lift stations that we've already discussed too, and those are $29,000 a pop. And so far, there's only been 2 that we had to replace right this moment as emergency, but we have more coming, as I've already told you, because there should be 2, not 1 in there. So that'll be coming too. And we have a game plan of taking possibly some of that out of the infrastructure money, or we could do the ARPA money. Either one, whatever commission wants.
I would recommend infrastructure first because ARPA has a wider use where there's more of a box around infrastructure, so you have more flexibility with ARPA.
So on the sewer budget that we looked over for the new plant that you guys showed me, we had additional funding needed there. All of the ARPA money was there and some impact fee money, so there was no infrastructure money built in there, right?
So we had $1 million from ARPA and the remaining from impact fees, you're correct.
So that's impact fees, but not infrastructure.
Right, no
So
infrastructure.
what do we anticipate is going to be the revenue for the infrastructure tax?
I can
Yeah,
look
she
it up.
has that paperwork.
'Cause
I
that
can't
could-
remember off the top of my head, but I know
That
she's
could
got
give
it.
us some breathing room at least.
I want to say it was
Yeah, it can really help.
Yeah.
4.
1 second. ARPA, infrastructure, balance from FY 2023 was 818,470.
Okay, good. Good.
But, we, in the budget this year for road projects, you've done road projects, so we haven't done any of those yet. And we might want to reevaluate them with some of these issues. You had projects exceeding with that amount plus taking the expected revenues, so, which, you should leave a balance in there. So, but we just, what we always do is just put the projects, but we don't typically do them all, kind of like with Wild Spices. We'll put all those projects in there, we'll do like 1/4 maybe, so,
Well, the roads repaving would come out of our gas tax.
yeah. Well, the other thing
know.
is,
But we did talk about using some of the infrastructure, because there was a commissioner here that was wanting to do more of it, but we need to stay in our means.
Right.
Well, the other thing is, we had for the wastewater treatment plant and infrastructure, $585,000, but we've since received a lot of grants. So that is very helpful.
And Mayor, I think you've seen them other grants from the other day's meeting.
Yes, yes.
And I know Tim and I talked the other day again afterwards. He is still working with Swanee River about trying to get that other
Transferred
grant
over.
transferred over.
Okay.
So he is he called them this week.
Now, would this be the appropriate time to talk about that, or should we wait to the regular commission meeting when we're getting that big picture update? Because that may be
I'll
better
wait
to
till
wait
then.
till later.
I think later
Okay,
would be better.
okay.
We're just trying to bring you up to date for
Right.
this hour.
Right.
On the budget stuff.
On water, you had a 25% transfer, and sewer, you had a 15% transfer. That's transfers to the general fund, right? Or,
ma'am.
so water and sewer are helping to float the general fund.
Yes, ma'am. As normal, all cities.
Right,
Yeah, they all
right.
do. I mean,
right.
it's a little high. So the water, a big part of that, it helps pay for utility billing. So, that's kind of important to keep in mind, but still, it would be good to, over time, the goal would be to lower the transfer, definitely, 100%. Because the legislature, in the last legislative session, I haven't checked this legislative session, I think we've discussed this before too, but they were looking at not allowing a transfer to general fund. So if we can start getting less dependent on it now, if that ever comes up again, we're in a better situation.
Usually all your utilities, even if we had gas here, which GRU and I are in meetings on it, we had a meeting today, So even though we'll just be a franchise fee, but we can use that at y'all's wishes and city managers, in the near future.
The one thing that I talked to you about in terms of maybe some cost savings, and this is only because I'm signing checks now, is lab fees.
Yes.
I think that we could do better with a different laboratory, perhaps, just because I think they're really overcharging us. And unfortunate for them, this is actually something I know about. So it's probably not something they're going to be very happy about. But, I was looking at one of their invoices, and they were charging us to do a calculation. They
Yeah,
charged
the
us for,
$5.
for
That
the
was the sewer.
two individual parts, and they charged us to add them together, and that's just rude, in my opinion. That's like somebody ordering a hamburger, and you pay for the bun and you pay for the burger, but you have to pay us to put it together too.
Well, like I told you earlier, that we're looking at trying to cut costs everywhere we
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
Where we buy our chlorine from, where we do this, and just like even the haulers that have to haul all the liquids out of the sewer plant. I mean, we got a company that we're using. They're only charging us 19 cents a gallon, which we called another organization's GRU, and they're going $34 a gallon.
Is that
For
for
us to
wet sludge,
transfer,
or is
yes.
that dried?
Both,
Okay,
because the other company does both.
okay.
So we've already, calling around getting our prices. So we're just trying to find out where we can cut pennies on all of our departments.
That's a hard one, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty hard, especially you have to be certified to take that stuff, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what's bad. So if you want to move to roads, I'm sorry, the professional services, as we talked about in sewer, we are cutting back on it because we have certified people. So we don't have to contract out as much to them unless, as needed. And where are we at here, sewer? Okay, I'm sorry. And then the building, also the 100,000 that we talked about, that'll be cut out. And $55,000 of installing grinders. That was theoretically a pass-through, but we're not installing grinders. I'm stopping that. I've already stopped that since I've been here. I'm making the contractor do it. While they got a plumber on site, let them do it. But now we inspect it before they bury it.
Now,
And we have turned down a few.
is that for new construction, we're still installing grinders?
No, we're not doing that anymore.
Okay,
I'm stopping
everything else
that.
is gravity.
Yeah, we shouldn't be the middleman. We shouldn't have to
Gotcha.
call a contractor, do that, and then the electrician do, I'm letting the contractor do all that.
Mm-hmm.
Keep us out of the middleman. And all that, but we inspect it.
But new construction is all gravity fed?
The newer construction, but still there's some construction, like some of the Florida homes in that area, we still have to go grinders.
Well, yeah, because, yeah,
Some of
no,
them
I get
areas.
that, yeah,
But
yeah.
the newer projects, big projects, we
Right.
try to go,
Okay.
yeah, 'cause I hate grinders, personally. So we can go to the street department, as you see, always, it's your, pay, salaries, vehicles, as you see, we have a very small fleet of vehicles, and then our property tax is big, and the utility side, and, utility side's a pretty good piece of the pie. And then we're just talking about, the rentals and leases, we're going to cut some of that because y'all have approved some new equipment, like the claw truck, the mower max, and stuff like that. So that helps us not having to lease as much as we used to do, a little bit before I got here and now. And then, the repairs and maintenance, like on our roads and all that, we can use some of the infrastructure tax money to help pay for that, and some of the tax money to help pay for that. So we're trying to cut back on that also, and we've been looking at it. And then just everything that we're trying to cut back on. I mean, I hate having to cut because once you cut, you never get it back. The training and traveling, we're cut. I mean, it's only $400, but we're not going to do any for right now. Maybe in the near future, but not right now. So that's most of the cuts that we can make. And that's a big cut. And I know we don't have another one, but I'll throw this in there. Cemetery, we had a gentleman resign in November. I have not filled that position. I'm gonna wait till spring. Grass ain't growing, he don't need to be in cemetery right this moment. I got my other staff trying to catch up, so roughly that'll be almost $16,000 savings right there, total salary. So we're just going to wait as much as we can.
Well, in terms of big picture, and this is probably an Ashley question too, we've lost quite a bit of staff.
Well,
in the
I've lost
last-
two. I've lost one that retired, Mr. Robin,
Mm-hmm.
that did my locates. We're advertising for that because we have to, by law,
Right,
have that position.
Right.
And then the cemetery one.
Right.
So that's only two I've lost so far.
but then we've lost an accountant, Parks and Rec director. What else have we?
Assistant
Okay, Parks and Rec
director, yes.
employee,
Yeah,
right.
I didn't know if you want to talk about Rick. I didn't know if you were there.
Well, no, I mean,
Yes.
that's fine. It's just, I wonder, do we have an opportunity to creatively fill, promote up within? I don't know. I don't know what we have.
So the other people in the department are Danny and David, and they're kind of approaching retirement soon.
Okay,
And Omi's kind of gone back and forth between, he's interested in fire still. So we're trying, but at the point right now, we have him staying in parks because the travel and training money is so much that it's not fair to tell other people they can't go. And so we don't have the money for Omi to go right now because we're treating everyone the same.
okay.
So there's not, so again, we kind of, yes, there's no one really to promote. So we're going to be advertising for a position and working out. Since we just had the resignation of the Parks Director this past weekend, we're still discussing what that will look like. But we will definitely advertise for at least for one position.
But that would also give us the opportunity to return that lease vehicle.
Yeah, I've already contacted them today,
Okay.
and they're
Okay.
putting it on the schedule right now to come pick it up.
So then what will that cost us to get out of that lease?
My understanding, talking to the gentleman early this morning, Bancor, he said that we may profit off of it because it is a Tahoe. Tahoes are hard to find. It's only got 8,700 miles on it.
Okay,
He thinks that we'll end up with money, extra money, once we turn it in.
okay. And then if we can turn it back in if we don't replace it with something else that we buy with something else.
Yeah, we don't.
Is there another vehicle like Damon used something different?
Yeah, the
There's something
little
else
red
available?
Mazda that Damon was driving, it's up and running. All it just needed was a fuel pump.
Okay,
JC fixed it.
okay. JC fixes everything.
Yes.
He can fix anything. He's magic. Okay. So then I guess in terms of the vehicles, maybe the next time we talk budget, you can give us a 30,000-foot view of where we kind of
Oh,
are
yes, yes.
and what we can return, where we are in operational costs. Because I know how much it costs for me to fill up my car. I'm certain it costs a bunch to fill up all these vehicles too, so.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know what the leasing agency will do, if they have a preference of what that would be easier for us to return versus not. I don't know.
Well, that's what he's working on. I mean, he's got all the the ones that were leasing from Bancor, him, the gentleman I just talked to Bancor, and another company that we talked to, we gave them all the updated mileage, everything. Where they come back and tell us, hey, we can sell this vehicle at this price, and y'all get this, or you won't get this. So we're working on all of it. What's the best for the city?
Right.
Because, my truck's in it. I don't care. I'll drive my personal truck. It don't bother me. The truck's not going to keep me here.
Since it's like 6:15 right now, I just wanted to mention, which I didn't earlier, that Eric May is here too. Not to cut you
Yeah,
short.
no, thank you.
Eric
I
May
hate
is
this
here,
place.
Thomas.
and he has found some savings in IT as well.
Okay.
Make the slideshow, Madam Mayor. So we have essentially overall, I'm going to give you quick statistics and answer any questions you have. So we're looking at an overall about 19% decrease to the IT budget. We achieved it a couple ways. There's about 35% reduction in the professional services line item. So I can talk in detail about how that calculation is made and how we kind of reduce that, but that's about $60,000 less. And then there was kind of a nuance that I found where in our software maintenance line item, at some point in the last, I really don't know when, I didn't figure out when, but at some point, we paid for both of our Springbrook maintenances in the same fiscal year, so we're basically paying a year ahead. So we're able to rectify that. And so essentially save about $18,000, so the two of those together is about $78,000. The rest of the line items in there are things like telephone lines, cell phones, things like that, that their state contract rates, things that are really tough to negotiate down. We're not going to overspend. They're right on par. We have a minor overage in one line item. We pay for our email licenses all at once, and there was just a minor overage there. The numbers that I've given you calculate, it's about a $6,000 overage on that email line item. But the numbers I gave you account for that as well. Like, we still have that savings after shifting that over. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the IT budget. I know it's kind of whatever information you guys want to know.
Gentlemen?
I would just like to reiterate that we went through several of these cuts through the budget process. So this is, again, if you can find anything, great, but there's really not a lot else after this.
I can tell you that I signed a check for you guys today, and the backup that you provide with your invoices is stellar. It answers any questions you have.
Awesome.
And Grace, God bless her, will tell you that I have a lot of questions when I'm signing checks. Your backup was really, really good. Easy to
Great
see.
to hear. Thank you. Yeah, in our industry, it's very important we understand what changes are made, any type of actions. And so anything our engineers do, and we touch things inside the environment, whether that's enabling a user, disabling a user, modifying permissions, things that just support the HR function of the organization. It's very important that all that's tracked, and so we have all that information. So if at any point, we worked a ticket just a couple of days ago where we pulled something, actually it was your citation. So the police department, for example, uses a block of citations. It's the number at the top, and we ran out, and we were able to reference within probably 1 minute. We found from 2015, the last time we ordered them, reached out to the Department of Highway Safety, and we had a new citation block ordered and done within like an hour. Normally that process would take a long time, but because we have that. So that's great feedback. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and they were very helpful to me today. Couldn't get into my computer, and
Oh, good.
Andrew was very, very helpful.
Good.
So.
Thank you.
When I sign checks, Grace will tell you I have a lot of questions. And Thomas, I think I should give this one to you for the electrical work at the Canoe Outpost. Grace happenstantially, and really it was good timing, came up when I was meeting with Ashley yesterday, and they were able to provide me with a more itemized invoice. They didn't give me any prices on it, so I've handwritten here what I think would be about what the going rate is. I marked it up 10%. They don't have a permit fee here on their invoice, and they use 12.2 at the 12.2 MC, and so long as Mr. Alligood is good with that in terms of it being considered a damp environment, I assume that you're good with their installation. They rewired a city-owned building and they didn't pull a permit with the municipality?
That's true. But that was that director, not me.
That was what, I'm sorry?
That was the other director, not me.
Well, that's the electrician's job to
Yeah,
pull
I
the
know.
permit.
He knows better, what I was told.
Yeah, that could be a $10,000 fine for them.
He's working on that.
Okay.
Mr. Allen Good is working on that. You wasn't happy.
Well, I mean, I inferred some of their materials just based on their pictures. They have here on the invoice 3/4-inch Carflex. I don't know how much they used. Picture looked like about 6 feet, so I guessed. The details of their invoice were pretty subpar. But like I said, I'll give this back to you.
Please.
And I don't think I'd be willing to sign this check until they pulled the permit and Mr. Alligood is okay with the quality of the work they've done.
Yep.
That's just my own personal, I mean, it's like the Allison McGrath one. We haven't gotten her deliverable yet, so, I mean,
I agree. That's why I called Alan after you talked to me about it the other night, and he's like, nope, they pulled a permit.
yeah.
They did what? I was like, yeah.
Well, using MC at the side of the river would be my first question in terms of it being safety. I'm not sure I would consider that to be a damp environment. It's pretty wet when the river comes up. So, okay. Well, I'll give this back to you then, sir. And, okay. Have we gotten the deliverable from Allison? Because I haven't signed that one yet either. No, we've been playing phone tag. Okay. I can show you on my phone. Okay. Because I know that one's getting kind of long in the tooth. I'm sure she wants to get paid, so. Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, the questions that I had are not in the departments that we're covering, so should I just save them for our next time?
Yes,
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that.
I think the CRA meeting should be next. We haven't had one in a hot second.
Yeah, and so we were gonna do it this time and then
Okay.
the budget workshop, but we really are overdue.
Yeah.
So, but, or you can email me or tell me now, or, talk to me on the phone, whatever you want next, y'all just let me know.
Yeah, I just wanted to know about some of the properties that we have. Remember when I was asking you about those properties? Have anybody looked into them and seeing if we can give them to somebody else, since the people that were supposed to have them are not doing anything with them?
Yes, I had Christy look at them, and I think what we want to do, we have a whole long process we have to go through, it's pretty lengthy. We would like to bring them, the existing ones have already been deeded over.
Okay.
But we have some more vacant properties, and so we want to bring them to you, and before we go through the process, see if you want to sell them or give them away. So we gave them to NHDC and Habitat last time. Florida Homes is willing, wants some of them too. So we were gonna put that as a future agenda item. In addition, we need to talk about some of the other city facilities as well, so that's gonna be a long.
Yeah, so that's all my field of interest. That was what I had questions about.
I just want to say thank you to the department heads for coming tonight. I know this is not an easy topic, and none of us want to be sitting here, but kind of when I was asking for the monthly meetings or the quarterly meetings, or however we decided to do it with the workshops, was almost a more of a probably a layman's approach of just how are we? Because last time it seemed like everything was tight, but we were good, tight but good. We were going to make it, and then all of a sudden, hey, we got to raise the millage rate, and that way, I know I felt a little blindsided by that. So how are we? Are we within parameters of where we need to be right now?
So, when we look at things budgetarily, we have some line items over, when you look at it, and some up right in line, but the ones that are over are ones that you do like a big, it's like a one-time payment for the whole year, for the most part. I mean, the budget on the expenditure side is falling in line right now. We had budget meetings with every department. The revenues, I stayed super late last night, still trying to figure out where we stand, because I was pulling up the bills. I was like, the bills, what we expect for the whole year. I was looking at when we do the budget, we don't have how the year ended yet, because we start in May, and in November is when we do the budget amendment. So I was comparing the bills, and I was comparing how we ended November. So I do think there is going to be some shortfall based on my estimates, and so I do think that we will need, I think these cuts are very important to do. I wouldn't be having them done if I didn't. Number one, you want to be a good steward of the community's money, but number two, I don't think we want to leave a margin of error going forward. So I do think we need to make cuts.
I signed a Verizon check today for $6,000. Is that a normal wireless bill for us?
Yes, we have,
lot of money.
there's a lot of, we have, when you look at police and fire,
So that's everybody, all
the whole city.
communications.
The whole city.
Okay.
There's two line items. One is wireless and one's communications. One is phones. One is and Eric can talk more about it. We have hotspots and tablets and.
Budget about $5,083 a month, so it's $61,000 total is the line item right now. So that's on par. Sounds like it's a little bit over, but yes,
It is
every
over.
cell phone, everything goes to that one line item inside of IT.
Okay.
So there's been discussions about shifting it, because obviously that's police, fire. I mean, every cell phone that the city's paying for is coming through IT. So there's a little bit of, that number can move, but that is a normal number. It's within range.
Yeah, and what happens is sometimes we have new hires. Some people, they get a city phone, that's it, but other people, they get to choose between a city phone or a stipend. So So if you have a stipend, it's going to show up more like under HR, but if you get a city phone, it's going to show up more under that line item. So that's why there's a little discrepancy, and it's not always perfect.
Thank you. And the other thing that you and I talked about actually yesterday was if people are taking vehicles home, what's the insurance cost for covering that potential personal use? Because that's something that I'm dealing with right now in my day job.
Right.
We're making a change because it costs about $100 per month per vehicle more to have that business model. Is that an option?
Yes, so I talked about that with the chief and the public works director, and we thought that we would get that as part of the whole comprehensive discussion, because we were going to provide you a list of the positions that, for the most part, like police, they take home, they don't use it for personal use.
Right.
The critical people that are expected to respond to everything.
Right,
There are a
right,
few that do
right.
personal use. But we are in line with the other cities, but we go back and double check and reevaluate everything periodically, like with the vehicles and the phones. The phones, we always go back and recheck, because it's not like someone can't slip in there. There's a lot of departments here, so I'll look and go, why does this person have this? So, we do those, but we will go over the vehicles comprehensively in February. We can make an item, get
Okay,
there in
okay.
February.
Well, it's almost time for our regular meeting. Any other comments or questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned. 6:30, January 11th, 2024. We'll have our roll call, please, ma'am.
Mayor White,
Here.
Vice Mayor Grunder,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
And Commissioner Miller has agreed to offer invocation for this meeting, followed by the pledge.
Father, we come to you just saying thank you for this day that you have blessed us to see and experience. Father God, we ask as we make these decisions, God, that you would lead and guide us and just help us go in the right direction. We say thank you for everybody that's here on tonight. Continue to cover them and keep them in perfect peace. Amen.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's a proposed modification to the agenda. The audit, James Moore would like to be part of special presentations. They'd like to be moved up to item number 2 under section E. So that's the only, I'll entertain a motion to approve the modified agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the modified agenda.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Modified agenda is approved. Next, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda, the minutes of the December 14th, 2023 commission meeting.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Consent agenda approved. And we will move on to special presentations. Our first presentation is the Alachua County Community Remembrance Project, High Springs Subcommittee to present the Alachua County Digital Black Heritage Trail Map.
And the commission. My name is Valoria Kelly, and I'm honored to serve as the chair of the Alachua County Community Remembrance Project High Springs Subcommittee. I want to thank the commission for allowing me a few minutes of your valuable time this evening. On behalf of the subcommittee, I'm just here to thank the commission for your support of our efforts in the past. We had a great soil collection ceremony last April with lots of visitors to the city. And I also want to present the commission with phase 1 of the Heritage Trail map. The last time I was here, I think I mentioned to the commission that we were working on the map in conjunction with the University of Florida's Museum Studies program. The map was presented to the Alachua County Commission on November 15th, 2023. And then there was an event on December 2nd to share it with all of the various subcommittees. And we were each given 100 copies of the map to take back to our various communities. And this was the first meeting where I had an opportunity. I really wanted to share it with the commission before I shared it with the community. I wanted you guys to see it first. So if the clerk can help me. Enough for each member.
Thank you. Yeah.
And the map, there are over 140 community-identified places of significance in the, throughout the county. There are a number of places on the map from High Springs. This was the first time we had sites of interest identified in High Springs on a countywide basis. And so we were so proud to include them. We are hoping that people will use the digital map, maybe get curious, come to High Springs, see the sites in person, maybe do some shopping and enjoy High Springs. But of course, there's Douglas on the list, Allen Chapel, Mount Olive, the former Duncan's Barbershop, which is now Poetics Cuts Barbershop. We included the High Springs Museum, the African American Room, as well as some locations that are no longer in High Springs, but they meant a lot to the community. On the map, there's a, what do you young people call it? The little QR code that will take you directly to the new and improved website. I encourage you to go look at the website. There's some really, really amazing work on that site. All of the events that we've held here in Alachua County, including High Springs' soil collection, the pictures, the videos can be accessed from the site. So again, thank you so much for allowing me a few minutes of your time, and if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them. Oh, one final thing. This is only phase one. Phase two, we're looking at additional sites. Two of the cemeteries that are top on my list are the Asbury Cemetery and the Noble Hill Cemetery. I understand those are, Asbury is an abandoned cemetery now, but it also has some cultural significance. So, thank you so much. Any questions?
I did have a quick question. Thank you so much. I actually am so happy to see Poetic Cuts on there.
Indeed.
That's my barbershop. But I was just wanted to know if you needed more information on Mr. Pete Bryant, because that is my great granddad. So
I will have to get with you because yes, I do. If you have, what we were trying to do were collect pictures and any memorabilia, because we understand a lot of the sites are no longer there. It's like out, you know, in down by Mount Carmel. Growing up, we all called that Wiggins Corner. And so learning the significance of Miss Wiggins to the community and how she supported the church and some other things. And one of the things we found was on, I always say the other side of town, I guess that's what, the east side of town? Oh, where Douglas is. I was raised on that side of town, so that's the other side. But anyway, we discovered with Mr. Clyde Watkins' store, he started that grocery store with a little money, but one of the things that he always did when the students were going back to school, he would fix them a care package. He'd give them a box of groceries, and so it was just that sense of community, each one teaching one, and just the stories that we gathered. Understanding that the secretary for what was the sleeping, the Pullman Porters actually lived in the neighborhood. There was a club on the, you know, some of us who are old enough remember them talking about the Chitlin Circuit, you know, when the entertainers played in small towns when they couldn't get in major venues. And little did I know, Mr. Pedro Wilson owned one of those little clubs that was on the Chitlin Circuit, but now there's a housing development there. So it's just kind of recapturing some of High Springs past and understanding, for me personally, things happened outside of Gainesville, because I think the first time I talked to you all, I commented, the first time they did such a project, there were no sites listed in High Springs, even though Mount Olive is the oldest African-American church in our city, older than some of the churches in Gainesville, but we had zero representation. So this was our start. And again, I thank you all for your time. I thank the community members for their stories, for sharing their pictures on Facebook and maybe telling me to contact such and such person. And again, my heart is full and I'm grateful. So thank you again.
thank you.
Thank you. This is beautiful. I appreciate it. and now we have moved up the audit discussion onto the agenda. So you are up next, sir.
Is that in your way right here?
No, you're fine.
I'm Brendan McKittrick. I'm a director with James Moore and Company. I've been on the audit for a few years now. I'll be presenting the audit for the city and the CRA for fiscal year 2022. I'm going to be going through the PowerPoint presentation. We did send the physical copies of the financial statements last week, but if you want to follow along, feel free to follow the PowerPoint presentation. Before we get into the financial statements themselves, I did want to thank the commission for the opportunity again to perform the audit this year. I did want to acknowledge we are late again, similar to last year. We did have some challenges this year as well, mainly to do with some of the account balances, getting those ready for audit, and then obviously subsequently performing the audit. We were able to submit the audit to the extended deadline to the state, so we were able to do that and finalize that today, as I understand. But with regards to the audit itself, work this? Maybe? He'll fix it. Well, it's not that exciting. Appreciate it. So I always like to remind the commission that these sets of financial statements are the city's and management's. However, there are some reports that we include in here as well. This is summarizing those reports. All right, thank you, I appreciate it. The first report being your audit report. This is where we express our opinion. We do have the same opinion we've expressed in the past, and that's an unmodified opinion except for what's called other post-employment benefits. This really comes down to kind of a cost benefit for the city. If you all wanted to hire an actuary to calculate a number to include on your financial statements, there is obviously a cost associated to that, but as the audit report currently stands, it is acceptable by the state, and it is one we recommend to cities, especially smaller municipalities, where there's not really value there. It doesn't impact any of the budgetary numbers that you all review. So again, it is accepted by the state as it currently stands. The second report here is your your single audit report. This is triggered when you have grant expenditures over $750,000, either on the state or federal level. You all did have those ARPA funds, so that's what triggered this. So we do a test of controls and compliance. And as you can see here on the slide, there are no issues of noncompliance. The third report is the report on internal control and compliance report. This is where we would identify and communicate any issues in internal controls and compliance. We do have a couple comments in here that are repeat comments, so comments we've had in the past. The first comment having to do with utility billing rates, and I think part of this has to do with us being late in doing the audit. Some of these issues that were identified last year weren't able to get corrected in time. But essentially, the rate structure that's currently in place and approved by the commission includes a CPI index increase. That increase has been approved, however, it's not in the system. So currently, the system is underbilling customers in the city limits for water utilities. So that specifically in there is just making sure that management's reviewing those rates, making sure they're in line with the approved commission, the commission-approved rates, as well as the CPI increases as well. The second comment is reconciliation of account balances and audit adjustments. So I mentioned earlier how obviously we're late in issuing the financial statements. There was quite a bit of work to get to the finished statements. With that, obviously, having year-end reconciliations and timely reconciliations is important as part of the internal practice and process within accounting and finance, and really just to make sure that errors are caught. You've got good numbers you're looking at and reviewing. So again, this comment is kind of a result of those audit adjustments that I'll kind of speak to in a minute as well. The second piece to this, so I mentioned the internal control issues. There's also a comment with regards to budgetary compliance. And this has to do with the city's legal level, budgetary control being at the department level. So as auditors, what we do is we look at that legal level at the department level, and we specifically look at actuals versus budgeted for the final 9/30 year-end numbers. So there were 6 departments over budget for the general fund. And you can see that included in the report, that's the general government, public safety, physical environment, transportation, culture and rec, and fire control. And again, the recommendation there is continue to monitor those, and as budgetary expenditures go over actuals, make sure the amendments are being made and approved in a timely manner. The next report on here is what we call the Chapter 10-550 report, or the report to the Auditor General, as required by the state. Some more required communication in here as well. We do have what we call is recommendations for financial improvement. So not internal control issues, but more of like, hey, just be aware of this. We would recommend that you implement these. These are comments we've had in, 2 of the comments we've had last year. First one being policies and procedures. So the city does have accounting and finance policies and procedures, but really just recommending that the commission review and approve those. The second being the unexpended balance for building permits. So the state issued a statute a couple years ago indicating that cities shouldn't have a carry forward balance in their building permits department. So essentially, we're required to look at that carry forward balance and compare it to the last 4 years of expenditures. And what they want you to do is spend that down. So essentially, we're required to communicate that to you all to say, hey, there's a carry forward balance, it needs to be spent down. Now, it's difficult because you don't know what that looks like from year to year, but again, we're required to communicate that. And then the last item, debt compliance. So for fiscal year 2022, City of High Springs had 2 new debt agreements in place. Within that, there are certain calculations that to be in compliance with the debt agreements, there's covenant calculations. One of those calculations the city wasn't in compliance with, so really just recommending that management monitor those and make sure that the compliance is made with those debt agreements. The last report on here is the independent accountant's examination report indicating that the city is in compliance with all investment statutes. And then finally, in the back of the financial statements, management does provide a response to the findings as well. Let's see if I can get this to work. So included in the package provided last week, we also included a letter with some required communication. A couple of the items in that letter include any new standards that were impacting the statements for fiscal year 2022. There were no accounting statements impacting your statements, or accounting standards impacting your statements. We also always want you to be aware there are estimates included in your financial statements, but there were no issues with those estimates. So those estimates include your allowance for doubtful accounts, so how collectible your accounts receivable are, your depreciation, so how quickly or slowly you're depreciating fixed assets, and then net pension liability. There is a calculation here related to Florida retirement system that's provided by an actuary. There is an estimate included in there as well. We also highlight a couple of disclosures for you to be aware of. No changes there as outside of some of the numbers changing, but that's deposits, investments, debt, and your net pension liability, as I mentioned. And then we also highlight any corrected or uncorrected misstatements. We did have what we call one past journal entry, which indicates it's not material to the financial statements, but just for you all to be aware of, having to do to the inter-fund activity between funds. So there was an entry that was proposed there. And then with regards to audit adjusting entries, we had adjusting entries related to some of the state revenues that you all receive, so accruing those revenues in the proper periods, as well as correcting some of the due froms and your fund balance as well. So now looking at the numbers, this is for your general fund, which is your main operating fund for the city. You can see the 3-year trend of your fund balance by the various categories. Just to kind of highlight some of the changes here, your restricted fund balance, you can see it did decrease. That's mainly to do with how the city is accounting for the Wild Spaces local option gas tax. That's now in a separate fund. And that being said, those funds are for restricted use, obviously for those uses. Those have been spent down a little bit as well. And then the remaining balance is really the building permits that I mentioned earlier. So that has increased slightly this year as well. Your assigned fund balance are those ARPA dollars, so obviously earmarked for those ARPA expenditures that you all have. And then your unassigned fund balance, some people call that your rainy day fund. That has slightly increased this year, mainly due to kind of an increase in those state revenues coming in. So related to that previous slide is one of the kind of calculations we perform is we take that unassigned and assigned fund balance compared to expenditures and transfers out as a percentage. Now, you can see here I excluded the ARPA revenues because those are really kind of one-time use. Can't really rely on those. So really looking primarily at your unassigned fund balance as a percentage of expenditures. And the benchmark we use or kind of baseline is 2 months. And the GFOA, or Government Finance Officers Association, recommends the 2-month, again, baseline of which it comes out to be 16.7%. The city for 2022 was at about 28%, slightly down from the year before. So obviously don't want to get too close to that baseline of the 16.7%, but also acknowledging we are in Florida, there are storms. So, again, having, the unassigned fund balance in the event of emergency is important as well. Now, moving over your enterprise or business type funds, these are those funds that really are charging for services provided. You can see the 3-year trend here. Kind of the one that most likely sticks out is that sewer fund, which has a deficit, and the deficit has increased. A lot of that having to do with an increase in expenditures and transfers that occurred in the current year. And this is one we always, like to say, obviously I live in numbers, but for this, that's really half the picture. It's you also have to think what's beneath the ground, so that infrastructure providing those services, so making sure the city continues to invest in that infrastructure as well. So again, something to kind of make sure when you're looking at the numbers for business type funds, making sure to also think about that as well. A couple other highlights, the fire fund currently has about a $250,000 fund deficit. There's a from the kind of looking at the trends from year to year, increase in expenses this year, mainly to do with salaries and benefits. And then your CRA, which I did mention, there is a separate audit for that, about a $219,000, $220,000 restricted fund balance, and there were no issues noted in that audit report either. And then finally, the net pension liability. If you were to look at the first set of financial statements, there's a very large number related to the Florida retirement system of about $5 million. Biggest thing there is there's no budgetary impact with regards to that number to the city, and all the required contributions that need to be made have been made. Again, that's kind of an exercise of an actuary calculating a number to include on your financials, but again, doesn't impact you from a budgetary perspective. With that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
I'd like to add something on the sewer. Some of these are money we expend out, and then we have to wait for the reimbursement on the grants. So I just wanted y'all to know that. And fire typically receives a transfer from the general fund.
So is that $250,000 in line with what we've had to transfer in the past?
It's above because of deployments that we were waiting to get reimbursed for.
So deployments we do get reimbursed for. We don't do that for free.
Right.
Okay, so that's...
we have to there's a lag time, we're waiting.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, FEMA's difficult just with the timing of payment. They take so long to pay services back typically. So we can't accrue that until it's been obligated. And again, the lag time, to Ashley's point, is pretty long generally.
But we cover our costs.
Yeah, so, till all the accounting comes in, I don't want to say 100% we're supposed to, but I haven't gone through every single one and made sure they're all fully, but that you're supposed to.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to bring up also was, I lost it because I'm like 50 now. Let me think. There was one more thing. When it comes back, I'll do it because I thought about it. Then the other question came up. I can't grab it right now. I know what it was. So the comment regarding the CPI not having taken place, yes, that was found, and as soon as it was found, it was corrected. That had gone on a number for a while. Actually, the assistant city manager found it, and that was not due to the finance director or myself. That happened before we both got here.
So are we on track to be on time for the next year? Do you know?
So that's kind of a difficult answer because, our firm is technically not engaged to do the fiscal year 2023 audit yet. We have renewal language. Obviously, you all will have to go through your process. Biggest push we were trying to do was get this out and get it to the state. So I don't have a crystal ball. I'd like to say we can get there, but obviously, there's going to be some work involved to get to that, to get it issued into the state in time.
That was going to be on the next agenda, whether you want to bid it or do a renewal.
Okay.
So
I guess I have one question. With it being late, does that cost the city money? With it being late?
So I mentioned that earlier. Ashley and I were working towards submitting that. We were able to submit it. The state has taken a very strong stance this year. So some of the language, and you can watch some of the meetings, they've been pretty lax in the past. This year, it doesn't sound like they're going to be lax. Generally, if you communicate with them, they've been pretty easy to work with. They've seemed to put their feet down this year. So there could have been financial impact had we not issued in time. Again, they realize, and I think they're trying to balance it too. They realize there are communities out there struggling to find, finance and accounting and making sure that things get done, because it's difficult in a city like High Springs. You don't just do the audit. You've got all these other jobs that you're doing as well. And we understand that, acknowledge that, and we're trying to do our best too. But, the state is taking an approach, it seems like, where they're going to kind of hold hard and fast on it. So it does seem like they're going to be a little bit more stringent with those deadlines. But this year, we were able to submit in time.
So what's the due date for next year?
The due date's always June 30th, but
Okay.
they do give, they give about a month and a half after that.
The
and
due
then,
date is June 30th.
correct,
That's the date we need to shoot for then.
correct.
So by what time do you need information from us if we renew? How much time do you need?
you normally start it now. Can I just?
Yeah, I
You're
mean,
not stuck.
ideally, we would have started 3 months ago.
Yeah. You start like right after the budget is done.
There's a lot of questions asking about how the year is and what's changed, and have you corrected any of these issues and all of that.
They can't get started on the new one until they finish
Right,
this one.
right. Okay. Now, this is probably a question for Mr. Walker. Since this is public record now, we've got somebody here in town that has done all kinds of government audit work who would like to see this. Am I allowed to share this with anybody now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
We can download it on our website.
Okay.
All right. Kevin, can you make sure we get this on there? Thanks.
This is just basically, you're presenting it to us. It's already been reported, so this is just
Correct.
letting us know, yeah. So what do we need to do better? Are we doing well? Are there places we could improve?
So
yeah.
go ahead, Ashley.
No, you go ahead. There is. Small cities always have a lot of things that we can improve upon. A big reason why, one of the things we struggle with is the departments are as big, so the checks and balances are more difficult, which is one of the reasons why we hired that third position. Obviously, now we're in another situation where we're trying to save money, so that's something that we need to look at. But that position spent a lot of time trying to help on the audit. So the next step was going to be, let's get things tighter. So, so you can go ahead too. I don't want to interrupt you, but there's things.
Yeah, so the comments I mentioned, those are important. There is a decent amount of work that still needs to be done to get ready for fiscal year 2023. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It was a lot of work to get here, but it can be done. We've just got to put the effort and kind of mindset in doing it. And again, having the resources devoted to really focus on it. And again, it's the struggle is, again, small local government, there's so many different fires going on. And when you get behind, it's just so much harder to get caught up.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Do we want to open up to any public questions? Any comments? No questions, commissioners? All right, thank you so much. I appreciate you
it.
being here.
Thanks again.
All right. Our first item of unfinished business, discuss, consider, and act on ordinance 2023-18, an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, adding sections 74-6 through 74-8, school zone speed infractions, adopting findings, providing for use of traffic infraction detectors in accordance with state law, providing for a local hearing officer. Chief Shepherd, please.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Commission and public. Once again, we've talked about this during the summer months, and we're on the second reading. This has to do with cameras and speed detection in our school zone. So if you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer. Thank you.
Do we need to read this by title only?
I'm happy to do so, Madam
Please,
Mayor.
thank you, sir.
This is ordinance number 2023-18, an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, adding sections 74-6 through 74-8, school zone speed infractions, adopting findings, providing for use of traffic infraction detectors in accordance with state law, providing for a local hearing officer, repealing ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2023-18. It's as read by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Does anybody have questions or comments from the audience? Yes, ma'am. Please come on up. Yes, please.
Billy Joe Hanlon. Do I do my address too, or just?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And my question is, I'm really not clear, what is providing for a local hearing officer? What is that? A local?
Madam Mayor, the statute allows for the appointment of a local hearing officer, and then the fines that are enacted pursuant to this procedure will be split up in accordance with the state statute. So that's basically what it does, but there has to be some sort of due process that happens when somebody goes through a school speed zone and they're above the 10-mile-per-hour limit. Then this sensor picks that up, documents it, it's then sent to our police department, then forwarded, there's an infraction that's issued as a result of that. And then the individual can pay the fine, or they can ask for a hearing. So there needs to be a hearing officer associated with that. We have a code enforcement officer. I would think that that person possibly could serve in this role. That's something that we need to have done and appointed at some stage, so that the person could come in and say, wait a minute, this picture is not my car, it's a different car, there's a license plate mistake here, whatever it is. I wasn't really going as fast as the equipment was off, it wasn't calibrated. There's all kinds of things theoretically that somebody could come in and say, I have a defense against paying this. Largely, I would believe people will pay the fine and not go through the hearing process, but there needs to be that ability under the statute if we're going to implement this procedure in order to accommodate people that are going through this process. Now, interestingly enough, the statute also provides, and I think this was mentioned at first reading, that if there are other crimes that occur that are incidentally picked up by the monitor, then that video can be used for that purpose as well. So it provides a multi-purpose.
So we're not hiring somebody specifically to be a hearing officer.
I was trying to figure out exactly what that was, and if it falls under codes and it's part of their job and it's
Right.
not costing the city more money, but is that, so would the cameras Chief Shepherd, operate just during school times or all the time?
30 minutes before school and 30 minutes after.
Perfect. Okay. So it'll just fall under the codes enforcement
It could.
person, it could.
It could, I don't know. Chief Shepherd will have to,
That's the plan, how you would, your code violations, that now you have the magistrate, that
Right,
process.
right.
That would be the process. So it
Right.
doesn't, there's no added cost. This doesn't cost us anything.
There we go, great. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Chief, we have to report by October 1st of each year the traffic infractions, and I'm not sure, does the company do that? Is that something that we will do? Or?
No, everything is done by the company. There's zero action. The only action that our law enforcement officer will have is the review of the transaction, the violation, and then they'll be subject to these court appear, the appear before the magistrate.
so those would be local hearings that we would have right here. Yes, ma'am. Gotcha. Anybody else have questions? All right, gentlemen. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2023-18.
Second.
All right, it has been properly moved and seconded. Angela, is this roll call? All right.
Mayor White,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grunder,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
All right. Ordinance 2023-18 passes 4-0. All right, item number 2 on unfinished business. Discuss, consider, and act on purchasing the Priest Theater.
Okay, just kind of, I think a lot of people have been following the Priest, but the city received a grant from the state for the Priest in the amount of $1,040,000. And so it's time now, and the purpose of the grant is to stabilize the structure and repair the roof. So it's time now to determine the next step would be for the commission to decide if they want to purchase it and move forward with the project and make an offer. There were 2 appraisals done, one in 2021 for $325,000. The most recent appraisal done August 29, 2023, appraises the Priest at $310,000. I noted the parcel, the library district parcel right next to the property that appears like it is part of the Priest property. We've been doing research on that parcel. And it looks like it actually might be the city's, and it's just noted wrong on the appraisal district's website. So we need to have some discussions with the county. It looks like it was supposed to temporarily be used by the library district for a library, and then I understand that there was a building or something there that's now gone, and then it was supposed to revert back to the city, but we're looking for that paperwork.
Apparently, there was no deed ever recorded, is my understanding. I haven't talked to Dave Forziano yet, who is the assistant county attorney that is investigating this. He's also the library district attorney. And my understanding is that there is no deed that deeds the property into the library district. There may have been some sort of use agreement, but apparently that was not recorded either. So it looks like we may be able to not expend those monies to have that property deeded, but we're investigating that right now.
We found our deed.
The most important one.
Yeah, it's ours. So there is personal property inside the Priest that if the city wanted to decided they want to make an offer and make that part of the offer to get those items as well. The personal property, according to Janet Alligood, adds up to $45,400, and she provided excellent documentation verifying those costs. That I did have some staff research to see if those things really were worth the cost that she said, and the consensus is that yes, it is. So the 2 big things within the theater are the Barco projector, digital sound system, and roll-down screen, which is estimated at around $30,000, and the Simplex projector for $7,500. And then the other items inside the theater include like the smaller items, popcorn machine, things like that, making it $45,400. So, so there we have that, and y'all just need to decide what you want to do. I would like to mention I have Paul Stressing. I don't know if you want to come up and talk Paul, about the project, because Paul has been assisting us since the beginning to help us evaluate the priest and, you know, how much it would cost to bring it to a sound condition.
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, thank you very much. I'd been asked to do a report, an assessment, a forensic assessment on the building, which was submitted. And I'm here today to, in case there's any questions and anything like that. I think there were some questions regarding the codes and upgrades and things of that nature, handicap accessibility and things of that nature. So I'm here tonight to speak to that. The building codes are meant to provide strong guidelines as to building and construction and how to proceed. But there's also building codes are also interpreted. There's language in the front of the building code, the first 4 or 5 pages, that talk about interpretation and the ability for the local authority of having jurisdiction to be the ultimate guidance on that. I would suggest, now there's also some language in the building code that states that if the improvements exceed 50% of the value, then you need to bring the building code, you need to bring the building up to current codes, or if you change occupancy. In this particular case, if the occupancy stayed the same, you would not be held to the position of having to upgrade as long as the building stayed functioning the way it is as a theater. The tricky thing is the value of repairs would trip that threshold. However, I would argue, and I would suggest that I have no problem writing a letter as the architect of record and also representing, I'm also the architect for the city as well as the county. I could author a letter basically saying that the funding, that the building, as noted in my report, has some serious structural concerns, and if not addressed in the near future, there could be catastrophic failure of the roof. I've been through the roof, dug all through the under framing and all up through the roof and things of that nature. And I think the intent of the grant was to bring the roof up to a code compliant roof system that makes the building safe to occupy. As long as the occupancy doesn't change, I would recommend to the authority having jurisdiction, which is your local building official, that the balance of the building would not have to be brought up to codes dealing with handicap accessibility, things of that nature. Now, I'm not saying that building doesn't need that, and I think when funds become available, or if that building were to be sold, those will be enhancements that could be added. But with the grant and purchasing of the building, I think that grant money would do well satisfying the structural integrity issues that building has without having to go into handicap accessibility upgrades and things of that nature.
So is there not really a clear-cut answer about whether or not we would have to upgrade everything to be ADA compliant?
As long as you don't change the occupancy of that, the building.
The intent that I understand this body to want to move is if we purchase it, structurally stabilize it, the intent is simply to sell it, not to maintain ownership as a city-owned building.
Well, then the occupancy wouldn't change.
Okay.
It would remain the same, and you would not be, it would be my professional opinion, and I would author a letter to the local building department basically stating that the building does not have to be brought up to code, and that the structural integrity needs to be enhanced to make that building occupiable. Right now, I would not recommend any public access into that building.
You seem like you're struggling. What are you thinking?
It's just the unknown. It's the great unknown.
The historical significance of that building is very unique.
Truly,
It's an
truly.
incredible building.
I don't disagree with you at all there. But the city's also not in a financial position to get into something we can't afford to do. So, if it's your professional opinion that the grant money that we have now available to us will be sufficient to structurally stabilize that building, and we do not have to make it ADA compliant, and we could sell it, that's a big.
That is my professional opinion.
Okay. I'm not an architect, so I have to believe you.
And just real quick to that point, John Souther, my structural engineer at Souther Engineering, has also been through it. So it's not just an architectural assessment. There's a structural engineer assessment as well. I did in my report, I did identify upgrades that if somebody, if funds were available, I kind of prioritized in my report some of the things, enhancement, but that will be something once it was sold that the new owner could go ahead and entertain. That building, to bring that building up to code, let me just say this, from a handicap standpoint, could easily be done. There's some challenges, but when that building was built, it was never designed to have, large restrooms, handicap accessibility. But from the lobby, since the lobby is lower than the balance of the building, you could easily put a chair lift in there rather than ramping and things of that nature. Ramping is certainly one option. I think when we first looked at that building, one of the comments that I had was because of the location of it, if the city wanted to do some enhancements, because of the land, and the land itself is very unique in that you have that large open area there. You've got the restaurant, you've got the brewery across, and then with some of the events that occur in downtown, it would make a very unique area for an outdoor. And one of the comments I made is if somebody wanted to, they could build a freestanding restroom area that could have a concession to it, and then ramp from there, to the building next to it, and because of the convenience, that would be a secondary handicap accessible restroom. But it would also benefit the public in the local area. So there's a number of opportunities there. I'm not here to tell you what's right or what's wrong, but I do see, as an architect, I see a number of opportunities that could be taken there that would really enhance that area and make it an integral part of the downtown activities.
I have one question about the comps that they had here, and that you may or may not be able to answer this question because this was the appraisal that was done. So there's a comp from Texas that was listed also in fair to poor condition, and they estimated the value at $51.65 per square foot, and our appraisal is at $57.60 per square foot. Why the difference? Just market, different states?
I would think so, and also too, let me just say. Being involved in the construction industry, the last couple of years have been absolutely upside down. I mean, construction costs have gone through the roofs. I do specialize in educational facilities. 3 years ago, we were building elementary schools for $175 a square foot. They're now $300 a square foot. And you look at it, and it's just, and you've got that, but you also have labor issues and things of that nature. So things are stabilizing. Labor isn't, but at least material costs are. But labor costs are just, trying to find people that, that can work and that are willing to work and take projects on is difficult. But I can't answer that other than I can give you an explanation of my observation of the construction industry and the market.
Okay.
Okay, so this is probably not a question for you, but was this budgeted, the extra $45,000? Was that budgeted into the final with the grant, or was it just the 310?
So the total amount in the grant for this phase is $350,000. So that would also include closing costs. So if you spend more than, say you say, okay, I want to do 350 or 345, if you add it, the 45 with the 310. Well, actually, that's more. That's 355. Yeah. So whatever's over 350, the city would be responsible for in this phase.
Okay, can't do that.
So, so you want to remember the closing costs.
What would you estimate closing costs would be?
Madam Mayor, we could get a very close number on that. We have an individual in our office that does real estate, residential, commercial. And so when you send your offer contract, you would want to have a close estimate on your closing costs, and your number, your pitch to purchase the building would be under that number, so you don't go over. That's the gist of it.
Who would be the building official looking at the building, determining whether or not we do break that threshold?
It would be a local building official.
And who is that?
Our building official is Alan,
know,
but
I'm
we have
wondering
Mike.
who's gonna take his
We
place
have
and-
Mike with the city of Alachua.
Okay, he
Who we contract with.
Okay.
And we could also use Universal if we needed to.
Okay, so we have other options.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I would recuse myself from it. I've spoken with Universal Engineering, which is an outside provider, private provider. I would never want to evaluate anything that was done to it, even if we sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I already figured that. That's why I even asked that, because I know you're a guy, but.
I won't do that.
Thank you, sir.
And could we get an opinion from them first with that letter in order to make sure that, because I echo the mayor's sentiment about, I think we're more than willing to do what we're willing to do, if that makes sense to everybody, but.
I can reach out to them tomorrow.
Yeah. but
To the
going
building
over and
department.
above on that, we honestly, we don't have it.
Yeah, understood. And again, I think I can make a strong enough argument that, first of all, if action isn't taken to mitigate some of the roofing compromises, that the building will, that it will be an extreme safety hazard, not only for the building, but for the local community. And that's what the grant money is for. And I've got a very good relationship, and I think I'm well respected with the building department. And I think they would trust my professional opinion on that.
You could also look at going ahead and purchasing the building and coming back with the discussion for the personal property. I don't know if the Alley Goods would or Janet would be, how they would feel about that. Obviously we have to make an offer and see if they're okay, but we're on a timeline with the state. I'm not trying to.
What's our deadline for having to deal with phase one?
I just need to put, so you still have some time,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just need y'all, the only thing I need right now is for y'all to make a motion on something so that I can say, even if it's that, we're going to make an offer or it's still in the process, it's not dead, just something that,
Make a contingent on
yeah,
the building
something.
official
I
agreeing.
just need to show that it's not just sitting there. So, and it's not, because I have the agenda item, I can prove it, but, showing interest at least.
And
That's
we
all I
still
need.
have expenditures already with Mr. Stressing's detailed report. And the two appraisals, we've already spent money. And some of that is CRA money, is that correct?
Yes.
So we have to replenish that money back to CRA before we can sell the building.
Yes, you do, because anything that's CRA, you have to keep for 10 years, so you can't
Right.
just sell.
So what's that number?
But you could also use the other funds, there's other funding sources in the city budget that like even ARPA money, that you could reimburse it with that, so it's taken out of CRA as well. Just saying, so you're not.
What is the total that we've spent so far?
I would need to go back and check. I mean, I don't want to even say it without checking, because the first one was done in 2021.
Right.
And I think we've been spending around 5,000 in appraisal.
And has that all been coming out of CRA money?
I need to check, I honestly need to
Okay.
double check. It was
Okay.
budgeted in CRA. I need to make sure that it was actually coded. It was
Right,
supposed to be.
right,
you
right.
know.
Now, because it came out of CRA back then, and you just said 10 years, does that mean if we buy this, we're stuck 10 years?
No, because we haven't bought the building yet. So actually, the appraisals are fine, still having come out of CRA, because we haven't bought it. You're just doing research. But once you decide to purchase it, you really need to use the grant money and use another fund, because you have to use a fund that we have and then replenish. The grant money will replenish it all. It's supposed to stay under budget, and then you can sell it, because it, in essence, hasn't come from any city funds. Like the closing costs and everything, once you reimburse everything with the grant money, you're fine.
And then and then as far as like these items, did she say it was like all or none, or can we pick items? Because like a popcorn machine, a new popcorn machine you can buy for $500, $3,700 is quite much. Nacho machine, Coke machine, and all of that, can we, the stuff that we're not actually gonna make any money off of when we resell, because we ain't gonna make no money off of that.
I from my discussions with Janet, it wasn't an all or none. I mean, I think that they're wanting $350,000 for the contents and the Priest Theater. I think that could get us a deal. But you know, it's up to y'all what you feel comfortable doing.
Well, I mean, so long as that upper level met closing costs and everything else, and we didn't go over that number because we don't have money to come over that number.
I just don't know how much the closing costs are right
Yeah.
now. Do you have any idea how much they might be?
Well, typically, the seller pays title. There's expenses that the seller typically has to pay out of the closing costs. You do your allocation of the ad valorem taxes. So the answer to that is no. But we could work it up. And the basic bottom line is whatever that number is, it's got to be under $350,000 to make a deal for the city to progress. So if you decide that you wish to direct staff to go forward, we would prepare an offer of purchase. We would prepare an estimate of cost to close, and then we would have that all considerably under $350,000 would be my anticipation. And there's some justification for it as well, since the last appraisal, and I saw one from Emerson. If it's the Emerson appraisal, they're very well-respected appraisers, and it's coming in at $310,000. So there's real justification. A couple of things, Madam Mayor, I know you know this because we've talked about it. The Allegoods seem to wish to sell to the city to preserve the property, so there's incentive in that way. The city desires to preserve the property, so there's a desire on the potential purchaser and the sellers to come to some conclusion here that isn't necessarily market-driven. So I think we can take that as a basis, but you direct us to be well under that number.
And you know, obviously what's driving up the price is the personal property. So I think, and staff did some research, Kevin assisted with it, that I think our consensus was that the projector, sound system, screen, and the other projector, that they were a good deal.
Now, what is the other projector actually for?
I don't know much about it, which is why I had someone else look into it. But the other projector is a simplex projector. Do you?
There's actually two projectors.
Yeah, there's-
One has historical significance, and the other one is a current digital.
I think the simplex projector is the one that has the historical significance that everyone's like, it's really cool. You got to keep that.
One other point, and I'm not sure, this might be something, Scott, you might be able to at least look into. I haven't seen the appraisals, but an appraiser is going to come in and evaluate that building. They're going to walk that building. They're going to assess it. The building has some roof structural problems. I don't know. I'm assuming that's factored into that number. So if you've got the funding from the state to do that repair, it's only going to enhance the value of the building.
Right.
Which is kind of a subtle point, but I think it's a point we're talking about.
The appraisal is very detailed. It's impressive, really. I was very impressed.
And Mr. Stressing's report is in the packet as well.
Right. Yep.
But I will, to follow up, Madam Mayor, on your question, tomorrow I'll reach out to the building official at City of Alachua, and he's right around the corner from my office. My office is right down from Conestoga's. So I'll get with them, and again, what you can do is make that part of the agreement, so to speak, because the one thing you don't want to do is go into agreement and find out, no, that's not the case. We're going to have to bring the building up to full code.
Right.
And I can flush that out tomorrow.
Okay.
I mean, You could always make a motion for us to move forward with our threshold being 350 for everything. But, you know, again, I'm not sure if they'll accept it 100%. There's only been preliminary discussions, so. But that's what our budget is by the state.
And contingent on the letter from, on the building department accepting my letter.
And it would come back to you again, but at least making a motion would give me something to put in the report to the state.
Well, there's restrictive covenants that have to be recorded that the improvements will meet the Secretary of Interior and the Department of Historical Preservation, and you've taken into account all of that in your report.
That's why the roof structure and the structural is concealed conditions. And in order to, in that particular, the building, in my report, I point out sometime years ago, there was structural added, steel structural added in the building, which wasn't original. So there's been previous compromises to the actual original historical significance. But I think, and again, to that point, I think the areas being renovated and fixed will be the roof. Everything else will be restored back to the normal, to its current condition. Now, unfortunately, because it is the roof, a lot of the ceiling's going to have to come down. But when you go in and you look at the interior, the ceiling is a plaster ceiling painted black. So there's not a lot of historical significance that anybody could really see or become an issue that would compromise any of the requirements from a historical standpoint.
And the state monitors us every step of the way, so it's going to be pretty hard to make a wrong step without it being caught.
Yeah. Now I would say this: if we were going in and doing a full renovation, handicap accessibility, things of that nature, I would say that that's going to be, we have to tread on thin ice on that because of the historical significance. But what we're talking about is the structural integrity enhancements of the roof.
Do you think those historical restrictions would make it difficult to find a buyer?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
You're going to find somebody, especially in the theater or anything that that sees that building and it's a diamond. It's like when I first saw it, my first comment was, "This is like a little hidden gem." It's around the corner. You really don't see it, and you look at it now. Ultimately, what would be incredible is if somebody were to buy it and put the original marquee back on it and really give it that original pop would be just incredible. Now, I would say this: with the structural integrity being enhanced, I think it would be very easy for somebody interested in buying it to go to the state and ask for additional funding to help bring that back into its.
Would they have a strong position if they wanted to change its use to be live theater instead of a movie theater, or some amalgam of the two?
I think the term theater, because with that building, if you notice, you do have the movie theater component, but you've got the stage component.
Right.
And I think when I first started looking at that, one of the things I had mentioned to the city manager was, what an interesting place from time to time to actually have some of the city commission meetings in there, because of the how it's set up and everything could be easily done. But it's a very interesting building. On one hand, I was kind of like, oh boy, this is going to take some work and some thought in this. But on the other hand, I'm thinking, this is an incredible building with a history, especially in the community that we're in. It's funny because you talk about that and you talk to some of the elders and some people, they go, oh yeah, I used to go there and watch them, and it just how do you put a value on that? That's for you all to decide. As your architect, I'm pleased to be involved with the project.
Thank you. I appreciate your input so much. Gentlemen, do you have any other questions, or anybody from the audience have any input?
Janet Alligood. I was just going to clear up on the interior contents. So it was requested of me, since the last appraisal was for 310 for just the building and the property. For me to put together something for the city, to have a list of contents on the inside of the building. We're not requesting or telling you, hey, this is what's got to go, or it's an all or no go situation. And so that's up to you, or to what you think the future person, or, you know, what it might need to have, since it was a theater. That's up to you, but this was the contents that were inside of it.
Okay.
And we haven't given, I mean, we had it for sale for $350. We had several contracts in and out at that price. So it's interesting to me that between the real estate and, you know, somewhat what we put together, which is, you know, these are priced under. We tried to take into consideration how old they were, what things were selling that were equal to its value, and the year that, you know, things like that. So it, to me, is the prices almost match what we are already asking for, but up to you guys as far as what you have in appraisal and the contents you think that you need. Totally.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Janet, would you be amenable to a contract that said that the city had the right of first refusal for those items? For example, let's say that we go in and do all the things that are necessitated by the grant and repair the structural integrity of the building. And it turns out that we have a buyer that's very interested in buying the property after all of that happens, and they say, wait a minute, we want the personal property, and either the city buys it at that time, or that there's a direct buy from that subsequent purchaser. Is that something that would be?
So the purchase of the interior items would be contingent.
It would be delayed. It
Delayed
wouldn't be
or-
necessarily in this part of the transaction. We worry with the property, the real estate first, and then worry about the personal property at a later date.
So let me ask you, what would we do with the personal property?
Store it until, if you want to sell it.
So we would still be responsible for that personal property to have it removed, stored, until that person makes that decision. I'm trying to understand what you're.
Can it be stored in place? Is that something that is doable? I don't know the repairs, the construction, all of that, but is that something that is?
I don't know.
Whether or
I would think that there would be an opportunity for something to be, damaged
Yeah.
or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because wouldn't that cause a great liability for us?
Mayor, just to speak on that, I'd have to get with Dax, but I believe the digital projector has to have power to it all the time. It still does to this day. It has to have power to it. Backup battery for power failure.
Left in place. I've worked on a number of different historical projects.
Mm-hmm.
An easy way of doing it. Make that part of the construction documents when we have the contract. It'll be his responsibility, and his insurance would cover it, would cover it as well.
Madam Mayor, it seems not fair to try to drive down the cost of these personal property items to the alley goods. That doesn't seem particularly fair. Then, on the other hand, the city is limited in what it can do per the grant, and as you said, we don't want to come out of pocket at this stage and where we're at. So my point is, and it seems as though Ms. Alligood is saying, yes, as long as things could be arranged in a way that the things are protected and they're maybe that part of the transaction could happen at a later date, if that's complicating the situation right now.
I didn't say
I don't want to
yes.
speak for you.
Let me clear that. I didn't say yes, but I wouldn't say that we wouldn't take it into consideration. But I also would prefer that it be considered on your part what items, if that be so, and you don't, I mean, you make an offer under 350. If that's, like, if you don't want the chairs, if you don't want the popcorn machine, we can sell the popcorn machine, or a family member wants it. I mean, that's not a big deal.
Okay.
So, I mean, to me, at this point, we feel that you guys should make an offer, that there's legitimate numbers on the table that look honest, is what I think I was trying to say a while ago with what we previously were asking. So I think it's correct for us to go forward with an offer on my personal end. Whether no one ever said these are the items that you've got to pay for. They're just numbers that represent the inside content, and that was what was requested of me.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So if you need to stay with under 350, you make those considerations, and to me, you make a legitimate, honest, decent offer. You got to do that anyway, right? So your number may not match what my number does on the projector. But just put an offer together, and we'll look at it. And if it's an offer from Mr. Walker's perspective as well, we want to only purchase the real estate, then that could also, you got to do what you got to do, and then we'll take a look at it.
We could make a pitch, Madam Mayor, both ways. We could say, here's what the offer is on the real estate, here's what the offer is on with the personal property items. These are, either way, the city could do it, as long as we stay under 350.
I mean, you could direct staff to move forward with a budget, an all-encompassing budget, not to spend more than 350, and then we can go back and work with Janet on what's fair from that point, because it'll give us time to find out the closing cost and then work backwards.
The chairs would have to be removed, right?
We have a current survey, so we've already paid for a survey.
Okay.
And a title search.
Okay.
And we would definitely just offer that up into the process so that wouldn't have to be paid for.
Okay.
I think I had suggested that already to Ashley. So just to throw that out there for thought.
Please.
Somebody interested in, Madam Mayor, your question before about somebody interested in buying if somebody buys that, it would be my strong feeling, it would be somebody looking at it to preserve the theater and the movie component of that. As long as it doesn't change occupancy, they could buy that building and argue the point, we're not changing occupancy, it can function the way it is. And with the projectors being there, without the projectors, is it a movie house? I think of those, the projectors would be something that if the city were trying to sell it, if you're not interested in some of the components, the projectors, I think, would be very valuable to that and the selling of that as a movie house or a theater or something along. The other items that the popcorn machines and things like that are easy, but I would just like to say from a value standpoint, that building you should seriously entertain the idea of making the projectors part of that building.
That would improve its ability to resell,
and what you're doing is you're
Yeah.
conveying that the occupancy isn't changing.
The intention.
Right.
I'm comfortable making the motion, but I know I want to hear from citizens as well. But I mean, I almost feel like we're getting to the point where we're beating a dead horse. I know exactly what I want to do, but that's me.
Anybody else have anything? Yes, ma'am.
My question is, now that I heard about the projector needing to stay on and running the electric bill and then the property taxes until we are repaired and selling the building, where does that money come from? Is that
It's a city expense. If
Right,
we
so is
buy
that-
it, we are going to have to pay the property tax, pay
is
for
it
insurance.
part of the CRA budget? Or
It
who's-
can't be part of the CRA budget if we intend to sell it.
It can be part of the infrastructure budget, because that's a city facility. It says city facilities.
Okay.
The argument also would be, Madam Mayor, that we're purchasing it for a public purpose. So ad valorem taxes, we're not, at this stage, we're not putting that building to use for a pecuniary purpose to make money for the city. This is a public purpose. It's a public, preserve a historic building in the city of High Springs. And certainly the argument, I can't guarantee what the property appraiser would do. They may have a contest with what I'm saying, but our argument would be, no, wait a minute, this may be used for city government in a meeting hall space. You know, there's all kinds of potential public purpose reasons why ad valorem taxes would not be appropriate for this building, at least at this stage.
But wild spaces is also appropriate, and it doesn't have the, it doesn't have the 10-year stipulation. I need to double check if it would be considered parks property if we can sell it. So I would need to check with the county. But that is possibly another avenue, but the infrastructure definitely is.
Okay.
So it was just my concern, it's part, not, we wouldn't be getting money from the grant to pay for these taxes, or when we already have deficit in the city, just trying to figure out adding that on, even though I love the priest and it would be nice to see it, but knowing that you gotta keep up your utilities and all that also.
Yeah, I mean, the Allagoods have paid to keep power on and AC
I
running
hear that. I know
this
what
whole
it's
time.
like.
You know, so that
I'm a landlord, I get it, so,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
I think the goal would be to get it done quickly. The good thing about it is we're not doing a complete renovation. We're just stabilizing the structure and doing the roof. So I don't see this as a project taking really long. I know I'm not guaranteeing like it's going to be sold right away, but I know there's a lot of interest. What's been holding up the sale is the structure and the roof being so expensive. But I think once you fix that, I think it's going to go quickly. And then when you sell it, you are increasing the value,
Right.
so you can recoup some of those costs.
Right.
You know, you can say, okay, we spent this much money on electric, and we spent all this. You know, there's going to be little things here and there. I think you definitely are going to be easily able to get that back.
And then since this was intended for historic preservation and for use in the downtown area, say we bought it for $350 and then we sold it for $450, just throwing out a number there. That $450,000, could that be used for matching funds for appropriations for next year for the police station? Would that be an appropriate use?
In my opinion, I hate being asked this question. I think it's up to y'all to determine what's appropriate. I think number one, the money should definitely stay in the CRA district, but the the funds were earmarked for the priest, and so in my opinion, I think the spirit is kind of the priest first, and or CRA district personally, just because the priest is an anchor downtown. So wherever the funds get expended, I don't think they should be put in general fund. I think they should be like in a special, like at least line item to continue making downtown more vibrant in some way, shape, and form. The police department will be an anchor for the municipal complex. So it will, starting to change the look and feel of the municipal complex will add vibrancy downtown. But it's up to y'all to ultimately make that decision.
So long as legally we could do that, that would be really nice to have to go back for more appropriations next year and have a little bit of match to offer that get us some more.
But then you also, you could sell it for a market rate after that, or you could just sell it for recouping the costs we put in up and above. So say the grant pays for $1,040,000, and then we ended up putting another $50,000 for some reason, just change orders. I don't know. Hopefully they don't happen. You could just sell it for recouping the $50,000, or you could resell it for market value. That's going to be up to y'all, however you want to do it.
Well, the city needs.
We don't have to come up with that tonight, do we?
No, you don't have to come up with that. I'm just going to say there's just a lot of different things, and there's pros and cons, and there's you can make arguments many ways on how to sell the priest.
We definitely need to, under all circumstances, recoup any cost that we put out
I
there,
agree.
especially after the conversation we had from 5:30 to 6:30. There's no question about that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Gentlemen?
I would make a motion that we purchase the Priest with the projectors and the screen for whatever we can come up with under the 350 in order to make sure that we can cover the closing costs as well. And with that stipulation in there that we won't be on the hook for making it ADA compliant. Is there any other of those stipulations? We put enough
I
of
think
them on
that's,
there.
that's,
Is that the
that's,
gist of it? I would make that motion.
Second.
so then we're waiting to get closing costs from Mr. Walker's office. We're waiting to get the letter from Mr. Stressing. Is this something we would have to vote on again?
No, ma'am, you can direct us
Okay.
with this, and then we'll make it.
And then that would get us to a point where we could make a legitimate offer? Okay, okay.
They would have to come back to accept it, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The contract, if we make the offer, and if the Allegeds were to accept it, it would come back to you for signature, and we do
Okay.
that at a regular
Okay.
commission meeting.
Okay. No other comments? It's been properly moved and seconded that we put together an offer contingent on Mr. Walker's estimate of closing costs and Mr. Stressing's conversation with the county or Universal, I think it was, or was it the county? Okay. Okay. Is this a roll call or is this not a roll call? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 4-0. Okay. Our next item on the agenda is citizens' requests and comments for issues not on the agenda. Please state your name for the record and limit comments to 5 minutes.
A long evening so far. I should have taken a nap. I am Linda Hewlett. I live on 182nd Lane in High Springs, and I am here to speak on my hope that Miss Ashley would stay on board as High Springs city manager. I'm speaking as the chair of Park and Rec Board, and I'm going to tell you this story. A few years ago, Ashley invited the Community Solutions Group to High Springs to make a park master plan. They began by meeting with residents in several parks and in the old school. They led discussions on the needs and wants of residents regarding our parks and facilities and programs here in High Springs. They gathered information, doing workshops and focus groups. When they had organized their findings, they presented to Ashley a plan to consolidate our parks and trails in a connected system instead of hodgepodge bits and pieces. And this is exactly Ashley's skill set. Being an expert in putting together a plan that is an exact fit for a particular city is what she has had practice doing. When she was interviewed for the position of city manager, this is what set her apart from the other applicants. Now she has created a blueprint, including wants and needs of the citizens. And as development increases, she can incorporate each piece into our master plan so that the walking and biking trails, the disc golf, the pickleball, and the river access and Plano green spaces are all pieces of a coordinated plan. This will enhance people's leisure time, and it has also been proven to increase economic growth. It is my fear and the concern of past park and rec directors that without Ashley to lead us, this vital part of the city's growth will wither. So Ashley, we know you have invested your time, your genius, your talent, your energy, and High Springs funds to this brilliant endeavor. And we hope you will stay and lead us to the correct end of that. Thank you.
That was very sweet. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Linda Jones. I'll first speak on what I wanted to speak on first. Form 6 was discussed at length at the last meeting. As I understand it from Commissioner Williams, and I believe from Manager Stavatis, that a PowerPoint was given for Form 6. They went into specific details as to what was going to be required. In fact, Commissioner Williams said that he was sure that he could get the PowerPoint so that others could see it. My question is, why wasn't this offered before? When I went to the Florida Commission meeting, League of Cities, I beg your pardon, Florida League of Cities meeting, we came back, I went with Nancy, another commissioner, and reported on what we learned. I don't know, maybe I missed it, but I don't know that there was a report made. Specifically, there was not a report made on the Form 6, which to me would have been vital at that point, that somebody would have brought that up. And the fact that, yes, I agree that if there isn't a commissioner making a lot more money because they're in that position, I would want to know that as well. However, I don't think that one person considers himself such that he was able to learn all of this information on his own, kind of denigrated the rest of the commission, that they really don't know what they're doing. In my opinion, Steve has done nothing wrong, nothing illegal, but it seemed to be pointed in that direction during the meeting. And I wanted to make that clear now, before my time runs out. Ashley may have done a very good job on planning the park. She's good at planning. She's not good at leadership, in my opinion. She doesn't know how to run the city, leading directors into the direction that they want, that they need to go. Her job is to run the city, bring the information to the commission, and they vote on yes or no, and we're going to do this. But that's not the way I've seen the commission run. So, yes, to your point, she's a great planner. But we don't need a planner. We need a manager. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I would just like to say that I do have a performance review from former commissioner, if anyone would like to see it, that says just the opposite.
Can you give me the date of it?
Yeah.
I can go back and get it for you. I don't have it off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
it wasn't
but I
last
think
year.
You've been a commissioner
Madam
for
Mayor,
a
point
year.
of order, please.
It wasn't last year.
We're discussing the city manager at this time.
Yeah, it is
Do
on
we
the
have a
agenda.
mayor?
For item number 4, I don't think we need to be discussing that.
I
this time.
agree with that. I was shocked when Linda got up
Yeah,
and
it's
made
on-
that
it's on the
comment.
It's on the agenda.
But
Okay.
because she addressed it, I felt I needed to make my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would like the date on it. It was certainly not last year.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to follow in Linda Hewlett's footsteps.
It is on the agenda. It's on.
Okay,
it-
so I wait for that?
If you wouldn't mind, yes,
I don't
please, ma'am.
mind waiting.
Thank you.
I also think it should be mentioned that I don't think any commissioner made an indication that former Commissioner Tapanis did. I think it should be mentioned that no commissioner, I don't believe, and I remember listening to that whole meeting by sitting here, that anybody made any implication that former Commissioner Tapanis had done anything illegal at any point in time. He made a decision for him and his family, and I believe that was said multiple times, and that was a decision that he made. So I don't think anybody, and I think it's very inappropriate for anybody to say that anybody indicated that he had done anything illegal at any point in time, because that was not said or implied, at least not by any commission member I saw up there.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Any commissioner, other commissioner response, or do we go on to new business?
For point of clarity,
Yes, sir.
I did not learn about Form 6 on my own. I went to training at the Florida League of Cities. So I did not read it on my own. I didn't learn on my own.
Okay.
I did not learn about Form 6 on my own by the PowerPoint that somebody sent out. I went to a training at the League of Cities. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And for point of clarity,
Okay.
it was brought up at a meeting. Yes, it was. It was brought up at a meeting. Yes, ma'am, it was. It was addressed at a meeting. We came back from conference. Commissioner Ross brought it up. Yes, he did. For point of clarity, for the truth.
Okay. Okay. Item number, well, I guess 1 now for new business. Update on the wastewater treatment plant project, please, Mr. Henry.
Good to see you again. So the wastewater treatment plant, we had a meeting Tuesday, which we invited mayor after we had a construction meeting. And I asked the mayor to be there to talk to the engineer firm, who's supposed to be giving the reports to all of us. So the wetlands has been started, phase 1 has been started developing. They have flooded them to see what sinkholes are going to come up. We've had 8 total. Per the engineer, that was expected, that we're going to have issues with some sinkholes. The cost of, there's 2 has been done, and that's been change order somewhere around $6,000 roughly, and we don't know about the others yet. They're still working on that. The contractor and the engineer is still working on that cost. The building of the new tank, they've got the foundation started, and it's all been, compacted and all that good stuff. So they're starting to work on it now. And the grants to help pay for the $12 million, we have gotten another $4 million per the grant, and another I forgot the number, 1.84, something like that, goes towards that grant that we did get already with $8 million. And there is another grant out there we have been approved for, but for a different project. So the engineer is working real hard with Swanee River Water Management to get that other $1 million transferred over to help pay for some of the other costs. So right now, that's where we're at on there. I think Mayor, she may be able to talk a little bit more on it, because I ended up having to leave the meeting, and but I think we're on a good roll now. We're projected somewhere around September. Now, phase 2 is that other $4 million to help phase 2.
I can piggyback on that, Thomas. Thank you for allowing me to come over after your meeting. It was really good for me to be able to walk the site and to go over the numbers with the engineer, because one of my concerns was we weren't going to be able to stay in budget and we were going to end up having to borrow money. And it does not look like at this point we're in that position. Looks like with the extra grant money we've gotten, we should be good. And now that Thomas is going to the monthly construction meetings, he'll be able to come back to tell us what was going on. But I don't feel like we had a really adequate idea of what was going on out there, because we weren't being told. But now that Thomas is permitted to go, we didn't have anybody going to the construction meetings for a long time, and I didn't know that. But now Thomas is there, and I feel like he's got his finger on the pulse, and I was really, really impressed with the engineers' presentation and walking the site. It's enormous, and those wetlands are going to be beautiful when they're built. They're going to be really, really pretty. The sinkholes are There are some pretty good ones out there. But the way the engineer explained it to me, the portion of the wetlands that's lined will not be prone to sinkholes. That was one of my concerns, is if you had a sinkhole open up underneath the lined area, is it going to suck the liner down into the sinkhole and you have to reconstruct? The engineer didn't seem to think that was a likely eventuality. I also learned that there's a plan for reuse water to go back to Bridlewood. I didn't know that was part of the plan, but that's part of the plan. And that could help with our capacity for discharge, if and when that happens.
Possible phase 3.
And, and the developer pays for that infrastructure. That may mean that even with another tank, we might not need to expand the wetlands. I don't know. But we also you and I went to the meeting with Newberry about the regional wastewater treatment plant. And I don't know where these guys feel in terms of exploring that as an option for a phase 3 or for expansion. I don't know. But I think it would be worth keeping that in the conversation, just, maybe based on economy of scales, if it could bring the wastewater rates down, and if it got the discharge away from the springs. I mean, to me, that's a really good goal. But then, of course, in terms of assets, it wouldn't be our asset. So then I don't know what that does to our financial position in terms of assets and liabilities and how that looks for the city. But I think it's a conversation worth exploring. But I felt much better after going out there and seeing it. So I really appreciate you going to the meetings now and keeping us up to speed. I feel like we're on the right track. So
Yeah, I would, on top of that, I mean, past Commissioner Steve, he showed up and went through the whole thing. Now Mayor showed up. I would beg you, please, let's do it. I mean, I want y'all to go out there and see it, sir.
Uh-oh.
I don't remember that, but okay. It was probably me sick. I've been, cold's been killing me. But I would beg y'all to go out there. Let's go out there and look at it. I'll show you everything. I'll let you talk to the guys without me even being there, where they can tell you the truth. Tell you if I'm no good. I don't care.
They wouldn't do
I
it.
want you to know the truth
Yep.
about it. So I would beg y'all to go out there.
It's really a beautiful facility. It's going to be very nice.
Yeah, I think, in the future, with the wetlands and all, we may be able to do some bird watching.
Well, the Audubon
for some
Society
of our
has.
community that wants
The
to,
Audubon
because they do
Society
do
will
that.
build a bird watching facility.
Because they do that in a lot of the wetlands
Yeah,
throughout. And there's a tour that goes around, does that. So it's something we may be able to help.
Are you?
And we can't shoot them, I'm sorry.
No, it's not a hunting
We're not at our
facility.
duck
No,
yet.
negative. No. Thank you, Thomas. I really appreciate it. And in terms of our percent complete and our percent spent, the engineer is tracking that real time. Okay. And that really helped me feel better about it. Do you guys have any questions? It's a big, it's a $12 million project, so it's a big one.
No, but I do know how much time and effort you've put on this, and thank you for this, because there's not a lot of people in your situation that are, I don't think would be as successful. So thank you for that. Oh, I believe it. No, our staff's impeccable. I'm telling you, and I know, it's easy to point fingers at them sometimes, but for what y'all do, for what y'all have to deal with, from all of us and from everybody else, thank you. And that goes to every staff member.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the audience in terms of the wastewater treatment plant? Yes, sir, Mr. Riddle. Your foot's doing well. Foot's doing well.
Bit too, it about killed me. Thank you for what you said, Commissioner Grunder. Thomas, you do an excellent job. I've been on quite a few tours now. But I had the question I had, so I know we got all these grant money. When they're done and that tank goes online, then do we have grant money that's going to do for the rehab of the existing tank?
Yes, sir. It's part of the grant.
So that's part of that grant. So the other question is when I was out there and toured, and I haven't given y'all my report yet, they had on the existing tank out there, they had a blower motor that went out. And if I remember correctly, that blower motor, the one that y'all put in not too long ago, was like $30,000, correct? The other one works, but it's not efficient, correct? And the reason I bring this up is this is one of the things that'll be in my little report that needs to be addressed. The difference in the run time between these two blower motors is 21,000 hours difference in run time. You can do the math. That's a lot of time. So, it needs to be replaced, and I hope that's under that grant as well. And it is? Okay. So anyway, that's just really all I wanted to know as far as the grant went. If that
I didn't know that. I appreciate you asking that. That's good to know.
But we had that problem in a lot of lift stations too because there was only one pump in there, but
Right.
I'll address that later. But thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? All right. Our last item on the agenda, discuss, consider, and act. I'm sorry?
Ask a question or?
That was about the wastewater treatment plant. The in general ask a question was earlier. I'm sorry. Did you want to ask a general question?
I did.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Teresa Martin. Some of you know me. I've introduced myself recently to our new Commissioner. Congratulations, Andrew Miller. And Byron knows me well. And Chief Shepherd. So I live off Northwest and Mr. Kevin, sorry. I live off Northwest 250th Street inside the railroad complex. I'm sorry, Mr. Walker does know me as well. So most recently, I contacted High Springs Police, and they did respond, and I was happy about that, about maybe possibly homeless people or some activity, but there's a lot of dumping. We've had this discussion, met with CSX before. There's a baby grand piano out there. There is graffiti that needs to be removed that is on the CSX property. I asked Ross Ambrose if he could see about getting it covered up. It's anti-Semitic graffiti that's on a structure that is part of the CSX property. So a year ago, I asked Ross, I try and just quietly wanted to get that covered up. And yet here we are, because it's CSX, people can't go there, trespassing, there's a lot of dumping, there's constantly people on those ATVs, all hours of the night. My road is basically a private road. I'm the only one that lives on it, so people shouldn't be riding past the front of my house to go back to what is gated on Mr. Peacock's property. So they are aware, as I believe Antoine can, Chief Shepherd can confirm that they're going to be, checking the area as much. But I did try to send a message to CSX by calling the 800 number, but then they referred me to the website. So I sent a message there. So I'm not sure if you are familiar with this, Miss, is it Stathatos? Sorry.
So there was one time that I was told there was graffiti out there, and I can't remember what department, because we kind of, sometimes our departments, because we are so small.
I followed up with him, and he mentioned too that someone was gonna.
And I thought it had been done. I haven't been out to check it. So I will
Please
make
do.
sure it's cleaned
Please,
up.
please do.
The other thing is.
I offered to do it, but I just didn't want to cross any, so.
Yeah, so I apologize for that, because I did
Thank
think
you,
it
I
was done.
appreciate that.
The other thing is I will also have our code enforcement officer get out there and just check out the whole site and start issuing code violations, like the baby grand piano, things like that.
So they're very receptive, I can't recall the woman's name that came. They paid and had it cleaned up a couple of years ago, had a bunch hauled off. It's just that I don't know what the statistics are, how often people are getting at least a trespass warning to tell them to stop riding. I don't mind pedestrians. I was totally in favor of it going to a bike pedestrian trail, and unfortunately that didn't happen, so in any case.
Yes, sir.
So we have a meeting with the CXX representative tomorrow at 9 a.m. And I do recollect the graffiti, and to my knowledge, I think that was turned over to Public Works, and we were doing the work for it, and I gave all that correspondence. But I wasn't aware if it's not taken care of. I can bring that up to her tomorrow. We have done multiple sweeps in that area, 3 times this located homeless people, and we're
Yeah, just the winter time. I don't have any problem with homeless people. It's just like, don't come around my house, please.
I don't want anybody to think that there's nothing being done, but it is private property. It is CXX responsibility.
Absolutely.
And so we'll have that conversation with them tomorrow.
Thank you, Chief Shepherd. Thank you for listening,
ma'am.
Commissioners. I know that we're all on the same team, so I'm still plugging for it to be a bike trail. You never know. I don't know what it takes to get CSX or the county. I don't know who fell through on that deal. It seemed like the amount kept decreasing until then all of a sudden it just was off the table, so.
Yeah.
In any case, thank you again. I did take some pictures. It's kind of hidden where it's in the structure, but it's basically, the road's all split. There's like 3 different roads. One's kind of going just parallel to railroad. One breaks off, and then there's even a third one. But there's a low structure that has the graffiti on it. So, yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, our last item on the agenda, discuss, consider, and act on the next steps of the city manager hiring process. I would like to ask that we make sure that we're respectful in any comments here. And I think it's important that everybody understand that nobody asked the city manager to resign. So that was a voluntary resignation. So we're simply following up on her tendering her resignation. I appreciate everybody being here, and we're just trying to chart the path forward in terms of where we go from here. But, you know, we certainly want anybody to comment, but please just remember that we're people too, so. All right, so we have running the ad, I think until the 15th, Angela, is that right? 14th, well, it's coming up. And we've gotten quite a few applicants, I think at least 12, maybe more. So what you need from us is direction in terms of what we need to do next, process-wise. Okay.
When we put out the original flyer, I had in there that we would do your 5 finalist selection on the 25th meeting, and then the interviews on the 8th of February. So I need to make sure you still want to do that, or you want to have a special meeting and have it separate, and how you want to conduct those interviews, how you want to come up with questions.
Well, I mean, I think it's important that everybody realize here that we have to ask every applicant the same questions. That's important to know. And that the only way we can deviate down that path is if we ask somebody to expand on an answer. Is that correct? So do we want to get questions to you so you know what everybody's asking? Or?
So I can tell you what we've done in the past. That's what we've done. We've emailed it into the clerk.
Mhm.
And then and I sat and deciphered through to make sure, because a lot of times some of you have similar questions.
Right.
So we condense it down to a 1 question. Then we can put it out. And then I was just looking up the last interview cycle we did. And so you guys had the list of questions. You went around and you each asked a question from the list.
Okay. Ashley actually had a really good suggestion when we talked yesterday, that potentially we could send out, if we identify, we come up with a short list and send a questionnaire for them to fill out just to get more information. That may help us give us a better understanding of who's applying. Is that something that we can do, or is that beyond your bandwidth right now because you're dealing with a special election?
We'll make it happen.
I don't want to overburden you by any means. Well, gentlemen, how do you want to proceed? What do you want?
So now you're saying send out the question, but we're still gonna questions once
Right,
again.
right.
Because you can read people better when they
Right,
talk.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the other option. We will also need to know if we want to do Zoom interview, like have it on Zoom here, or we're gonna have the people come in person. Now, it may come up that we don't have anyone that's not local, and you may pick all the people that are local, so it'd be fine for them to come here. But if they're from another state, we might want to do Zoom for that.
So then if we had 2 from another state and 3 that were local, would it still be appropriate to do them all on Zoom so that they were all the same kind of interface?
No.
No? You don't have to do that?
No, you don't have to do that.
Okay.
You can set up the procedure as you elect to do it. You don't have to ask all the same questions. I think the idea behind that is that to try to give fairness to the applicants, you try to come up with the same questions. that
Okay,
you're asking.
okay,
Now,
so the medium is not as important.
No, and if you feel like you want to ask a question, maybe an answer indicates to you that you want to dive into that answer a little further, you can do that.
Right.
So you're not, it doesn't have to be so scripted that you feel constrained by it, in other words.
Okay.
But
So
can you-
open-ended questions would be better.
I'm sorry?
An open-ended question would be
Yes,
better.
I think that's exactly what, you're trying to get information from the applicant as to what their position is on certain items and whether they're a fit for this city. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, my suggestion probably would be that we do a special meeting because I feel like it's going to be timely. So to have an agenda like this and then do interviews, that's gonna be a lot.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So then would we need to set a date for that, Angela? Okay. Okay.
You'll break down the list and get us 5, or we pick the 5?
And so it'll be on the agenda for the next meeting, the January 25th meeting. And then you will discuss it and rank them. And that's the top ranking.
And based on I would say my preference would be, we give them the option. I realize unfortunately, we don't have the funds now to fly somebody in and all that, but we give them the option.
Right.
Either in person or Zoom, whichever they prefer.
now, would it be okay to give the option for a certain mileage? So, because if we put the option out for Zoom, if somebody local wants to do Zoom, I don't think that they should be able to do Zoom and they live right around the corner. Like, is it legal for us to put in a mileage?
If you live within 30 miles of the city,
You have
I
to
think
do
it would have to be everybody's own discretion, wouldn't it?
That'd be great. I'd love actually if we picked 5 people and then somebody was like, nah, I'll just do it from the house on my couch. I'd be like, well, I know I don't want you. You know, I mean, honestly, I think it's a great tool to kind of get them out of here.
So could we, I mean, if they're local, it would be more preferable for them to
I
be
think
here.
you'd say that is that if you're, if you feel like preference is given to in-person interviews. And that goes for people that live in a different area. And if they feel it's important enough and they're interested in the job and they want to get in their car and drive 5 hours, then that probably has an impact on all of you.
Yeah.
And so, you can say it in that way, I think.
Okay. So it's closing soon. Are there any more in our boxes that came in today? I didn't see anything that came. Okay. So we've got a fair number. And I think that we've also, I don't know if you all read the employee input. I think it was emailed to you. I mean, I think that gives us a good path for what's important. The employees that did that were really helpful in terms of what they're looking for, what's important to them. And that's got to be first in our mind too, in terms of what's going to be a good fit for all of the folks we have here. So Um,
As far as meeting dates, so you want to do it well, I guess after the February 8th, because that's what I kind of put in the ad. Would you want to do it the following Thursday, like the Thursday between our 2 February meetings? Wait, let me see what date that is first.
it's close.
Do it on a Tuesday, it's up to you.
Okay, so long as we didn't interfere with plan board. Yeah.
I mean, do we know what's on the agenda for that? Yeah.
Have anything on there quite yet?
Yeah, that's a good point. If it's not a heavy packet, then we could probably get through it. But if it is, I agree with Commissioner Miller.
Yeah. I concur. I think carving that out as its own would be optimum.
It's definitely
So that we
important
could
enough.
focus on, yeah, so we could just focus on that. Because it's a hard job. It's a hard job to do, and we got our work cut out for us to find somebody, so. Okay. So then, Angela, in terms of, we're just setting forth the path, we're gonna come up, everybody's gonna go through the applicants, and we're gonna rank them. Do we rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? What kind of ranking system do you want?
We can each give them point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we can just rank. We'll have a chart and we can go through, and whoever gets number 1 gets this many points.
Okay,
And
okay,
then we can just see if it all falls in line.
okay.
If there's like 4 and then 2 have a tie, we can do a 6th person.
Okay. Okay.
So if you want to think about dates, and then at the next meeting when we select them, give me the date so I can, when I call them to set up interviews, then I have that date.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Williams looks like he's got a question, but he doesn't.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking, whoever that new commissioner gonna be elected, wouldn't have a say-so at all
Right,
with this,
right.
with this process.
That's true.
That's just food for thought.
Well, I mean, it was unintended that we'd be here for sure, so.
You have a tentative election date.
You do.
So they verified that the vendor most likely will be able to get us the ballots for March 26th.
Okay, okay.
I wanted a direct confirmation before I set qualifying.
So then qualifying would be set after you confirm that date.
Well, they gave me yeah.
That's a week after the primary. Okay, okay. All right. Okay. Thoughts?
I'm just still thinking about that person. And
Well,
but
I
see-
mean,
but I-
do we want to instead consider, I mean, this is just, we're thinking about it here. Do we want to instead consider appointing an interim so that the next commissioner could be part of that process? An interim city manager, not an interim commissioner. You know, if you want, I mean, you make a valid point that there's going to be a whole nother commissioner there making decisions, wouldn't be part of that process. Do we want to put it off or, push ahead?
I think you always have, I mean, you're always going to have a commissioner that gets elected at some point in November that didn't have a chance to pick this city manager.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're always going to run into that, and
Yeah.
we were elected for a reason, and that's to make the hard decisions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is one of those things that, it's out there.
I beg the difference because just last Thursday, we just said that we couldn't appoint. And we've been elected to do that, but we did not fill this seat. So, I just don't feel it's fair to that person that's gonna be sitting here there and have a part of the process.
Well, I guess, Commissioner Tristan said, I mean, as the newest commissioner sitting here, I wasn't a part of the process when you all chose Ashley.
That's true. That's true.
You weren't part of the city. You weren't a candidate for election, so of course not.
Yeah, but currently we don't have no candidates, so.
Yeah.
But we're
It's the same.
going to have candidates after they qualify.
I understand your perspective, I really do. I do.
So what, how long would it be if we stretch it out?
A month?
A month.
Well, we'd need to find somebody to fill that position to fill that month then. We're gonna, I mean, we have till the end of February with Ashley, and she's gonna be taking some really important leave, personal leave, so we're gonna need to find somebody to take care of that gap for her anyway, to give her the flexibility that's beyond important right now. So, you know, I mean, would we have the opportunity to appoint an interim to give her some breathing room there too? I don't know. I mean, you'd have to appoint somebody anyway while you were gone, right, to help.
For people that don't know, my son is ill. So I'm fine serving however long you need me. I'm fine if you do an interim. I'm fine with whatever you need.
Okay.
Sorry, it's just like when you mentioned it.
Well, I mean, that's the most important thing right now, is making sure that you can take care of your family, and that's just full stop. So do we need to, in that interim, give you breathing room now, so that you can focus on that?
I will probably have at least 2 weeks I have to take off soon. After that, I don't know how long it's gonna be. My son's he's gonna be fine. So, but I'm willing to help the city however you need, for as long as you need. I can come and go. We have strong people here. Thomas is very strong. Sorry for
Yeah.
all this.
Yeah.
The chief is very strong. We have a lot of really great, Angela's does
Yeah.
a great job, but she's gonna be doing elections, so, so I'm always willing to help the city.
Which would help us bridge that gap, which
Yeah.
is, it's a tremendous benefit for us. So, you know, I mean, that time that you're gonna be taking is coming soon, and it's has to happen, and it's the only right thing to do. What do we do from here forward then? You know, what are we gonna need to do to support you to be able to focus on everything you need to do and be 100% there?
I'm going to need at least 2 weeks. I'm hoping it's just 2 weeks from my son's surgery. And then after that, there will be some follow-up until we get the plan of action soon. So there will just be some travel to Kansas City. You know, my dad was sick, as you know, and I worked remotely for some time. And I can do the same thing. And I think a lot of the initial is going to come up. Sorry, I'm just kind of like put on the spot a little.
Sorry.
I think it's going to come up before the end of January, beginning of February, and then I will be back for, weeks. And I can make it through March if you need me, but I will be having to work remotely some. I can't guarantee, there will be some weeks where I can work 60 or 70 hours, and then there'll be some weeks where I have to work maybe 20, so. Everything's up to y'all. I kind of did it once before, and.
And it's not easy.
No, it's not.
It's
It's
not.
not easy.
It's not easy.
But I do care about the city.
Of course. So then, to your point, Commissioner Williams, if we appointed an interim, somebody, Chief Shepherd will look the other way, and Angela will look the other way every time you say it. And I don't know how Jenny feels about it, but, if we appointed an interim as Ashley is finishing up, so that she had the flexibility to take care of her family first and always, and then extended that out to the end of March, so that we had another commissioner here to do the interviews. That commissioner would not have been part of the vetting process or part of this process.
But I do agree they would have a say at that point, though.
Right.
And I think we have staffing here in the city right now, and I don't know if, I'm just telling you what just popped into my head, but I would take Chief Shepherd and put him over all of the first responders. That would be fire and police. And I would take Thomas and put him over the rest of the city. He's been Ashley's right hand since Bruce has left. He stepped in. That would be my thought, and that way it's split. You have, sworn on one side that Chief can handle. We are talking about a month and some days.
Yeah, it's going to be an intense couple of months, but Thomas, you're doing the job already of about 7 people. I mean, anybody who knows you knows you're working 7 days. I don't even know how many hours every day. Is that even something you could absorb? Because that's a whole nother level. Or could Alan Allengood help you?
I mean, I believe I could do it, but in one condition.
I didn't say I didn't believe you could do it.
No, I'm just saying, I believe I can help the city. The city's in my heart, but in one condition, no extra money.
Okay. Is that, and now, Mr. Walker, you need to guide us here in terms of charting this path forward. Is it appropriate to divvy up responsibilities in this regard?
That oftentimes happens.
Okay.
Many times you
Okay.
have internal people that take over responsibilities. Sometimes there's a city manager that has a medical calamity, and so
Sure.
I've seen cities have joint city managers. That is not, I would think the preference to have a total co-city manager situation. I've seen cities appoint city managers, divide it, as was just said. All manner of situation is appropriate.
Okay.
It's what you believe is the best way to direct things.
Well, I think the most important thing to do right now is to get Ashley whatever relief she needs today, right now, so that she can focus the only place where she needs to be right now. And, regardless of whether she's here or not, she's honored, she's given us her date in February 29th. She is a paid employee until February 29th and has committed to us to be available, and I believe that to be the case. And we wouldn't be able to do it unless she does that. But I want her to have the ability to disconnect and do what she has to do, too. So, I mean, if Chief Shepherd isn't running screaming out of the room right now, which he's not, Thomas, I'm a little worried about you taking on so much more, though. I'm not going to lie. You're already doing.
I got a good staff.
So you do. You have the best. You'd have the best. Would it be possible, and Mr. Allengood hasn't even looked at me since I said his name, would it be possible for him to help offload you as well? Because he is, yeah. I mean, if we had that trio, I think we might be able to help bridge the gap of one person while they're trying to keep up with all of their other stuff. So
this process is going to be around May when we get a new city manager?
Well, if we had the election March 26th,
Welcome to the show, new commissioner.
Yeah, I just wanted to put it out there. It's
Hiring
going to
city
be around
manager in
May.
April.
yeah.
And also, and I'm not, trying to say anything any other way, but so now that we don't have a parks director, is that going to fall under Thomas' job too?
So we are going to be advertising for a parks position. We're trying to still figure out what that's going to look like. But there already is interest because people have called. So yes, that is following under Thomas.
If you're up for the challenge, you're going to just take
Could you bring Jennifer with you for a little while, or would she be able to help hold the fort down where she is?
Yeah, Jennifer's already been helping out on the Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Ashley and Bruce has put Parks and Rec under me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I have had Jennifer going to some of the meetings because they weren't being attended by of staff.
Mhm.
And also Jennifer is a big help.
Would there be any potential that she could move into a position to do some of that?
There's always potential. I will always want our in-staff grow.
Mhm.
And I would encourage it.
Yeah. Okay.
I know we didn't talk about that tonight, but that's one of the places I saw that we could maybe save ourselves some money. That's over in the Parks and Rec side without giving up what we already offer.
Right.
But that was something I had ideas about, but we didn't have that conversation tonight, which I understand. We only had an hour. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely something.
I mean, Ashley told me that you guys have a plan in terms of how to keep moving forward to keep the rec leagues going, which was some concern that
Yes,
parents
ma'am.
had.
If Ashley wants to go ahead and kind of touch on it, or I can do it, either or.
I mean, we had been talking to an employee of another city, not planning to contract with the city, contract with the employee who has familiarity with the programs, because we don't want there to be a lapse. And so that was kind of what we were looking at and waiting for a contract from that employee. Then we were also going to look to fill, advertise for a position.
Okay. Okay.
We just don't have enough staff to
Right,
just
right.
like jump into everything all the time. So
Right.
sometimes we have to seek outside help.
I was pretty impressed by the parents who reached out to me. They were both coaches and very, very invested. And I think the parents are going to step up too in a big way.
They have been contacting me
Yeah.
also, and Jennifer.
Yeah.
And we have a pretty good,
Okay.
we're having meetings with them.
Okay.
How to move forward.
Mhm.
I got a bunch of them set up already, starting Tuesday morning.
Mhm.
And I think this route that Ashley and I have talked about, I think it's going to save the city money.
Mhm.
And it's going to move us farther ahead.
Okay. Gentlemen, anything else? All right, any questions or comments from the audience?
Julie Tapia-Arana, I'm very sorry that you're having to go through all of that.
That's okay.
But I think trying to also add an interim manager while we're also trying to do another election, it's in your purview, of course. It sounds like you can handle, you've got talented people in all departments if it's a short term. And as to that commission seat, Mr. Williams, that is an elected position. That is what we wanted. That is what you took our opinions and you voted on it. Yours is a hired position. The difference is, I think the commission should be able to hire, whether you're 4 or 3 or 5 strong, and leave the election out. If you have to make this choice right now, make it with 4, because that's what has to be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to start out by asking, is there any chance that you would stay, Ashley?
I want to right now concentrate on my son right now, and so I can't make those. I just want to help the city how they need right now, and I want to concentrate on my son. That's really sweet. Thank you.
And I respect that. And even if you did choose to stay, it would put, everything else wouldn't make it any difference, but, I've been waiting all night to say this, and I'll read it, but that would help you if you needed something. And there wouldn't be no charge to the city. But Ashley's done a lot since she's been here, even with, I was the president of the garden club for 2 years. And with Ashley, she had all the city buildings inspected, and because the garden club is also part of the Boy Scout hut. But there hasn't been any money invested into those buildings since I don't even know when. But with the help of Public Works and Amy Bohannon, who was very professional and helpful and instrumental in helping us get some much-needed repairs and upgrades, and I know that we've met with Ashley after Thomas Henry got the inspection report. Everybody met together, and the Boy Scouts came out with us to the meeting, and it was, Ashley was very prompt in scheduling that meeting and being sure that we understood that, not knowing where the money would come from for the repairs, because the commissioners decide that we only have so much money, and we have several buildings that really need the buildings brought up to code. I think the garden club is very important for our city, and I think that the Boy Scouts hut, which is embarrassing, honestly. But we'd be willing to do GoFundMes to help the city pay for some of that. We'll do our part. But I know that Ashley works hard, and that it'd be good to keep her as our city manager. But if you remove jealousy and hate also, and I'm asking that everyone leave the baggage and criticism and self-serving in the past, and that forward thinking and commitment to our residents, respect for each other, and the process will keep High Springs a good place to live and raise our family. And just no blame. It's just everybody contributes something good to the forward movement of our city. But thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Anybody else? Linda Jones. Can I get those dates? I mean, there was a lot of.
There were.
Dates thrown around and who's doing what, when, and where, and could we get a?
January 25th, we whittle it down to 5. February 8th, nothing. We haven't said anything for February 8th. We've talked about waiting. I don't know if we've decided what we're doing, but. Right. So at the next meeting, we'll come and we'll rank the top 5.
Okay. And when is?
It's January 25th.
When is Ashley's last date?
She submitted her resignation to be effective February 29th. But
I thought it was January 17th.
No? No? Right, February 29th.
Contract required it. The way I wrote it was my contract required 60 days, so I said the 60 days, and I said, knowing it was the holidays, so you wouldn't be able to advertise for the position, I said, if you need me to stay on until the end of February, I can, but I don't have to. It's whatever.
Oh, I thought
people
that
want.
was your.
So I think the assumption was that I was just staying till the end of February, and so since that's what I was doing, since that's what I turned in.
Okay. So that's our understanding, end of February. But now I think with some interim here coming on pretty soon to help give Ashley some relief while she's on leave.
Okay. So when will you make a decision then on the city manager?
That hasn't been.
It's gonna be in May. I'm telling you, because you just said April, it's gonna be in May.
That's a long time to wait. It's a long time for Thomas and Alan and Chief Shepherd to be bridging the gap. Should we set a date tonight, Angela?
I just need a date for when I call.
Right.
So when you say the election would be?
March 26th.
March 26th.
That's a tentative that we think it's going to be.
Okay. So why we have to wait till May till?
The new commissioner starts in April.
April. April 11th.
April, unless on his first, he or she's first commission meeting, we're gonna do
interviews.
Is that what you were planning?
I see what you're saying. If we waited until the second meeting in April, it would take them a couple weeks to get here, and it would be May. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
if this works, so yeah. Hello,
Name-
Damon
name,
Messina.
please, sir.
How you doing? Past recreation director for the city of High Springs. I know I've only got, 3 minutes? I just kind of want to express how I truly feel. I've worked here on and off roughly for about a decade, give or take. I think it was since 2008, and just up until currently, just about roughly a year ago. I'm starting to see a little bit of a pattern, and the city was in a lot of turmoil. Roughly from I think it was safe to say, from 2010 to roughly 2013, 2014. I'm seeing kind of the same pattern. I'm hoping, and I know this city is very, very resilient, very resilient. We have wonderful staff here. I like to express how much I truly care about Madam Mayor towards Ashley Stathatos. She has done a wonderful job. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Williams, Commissioner Williams, it was roughly 2013 when we started seeing a little bit of a shift. And then during that shift, we were kind of on the defensive a little bit because of what past commissioners have done, unfortunately, before that held the city back. City Manager Booth came in and did a wonderful job. And then afterwards, of course, Mr. Joel DeCourcy did a good job holding on to that ship. We were in COVID. And then, we started getting on the upswing a little bit. And then Ashley comes in. And all commissioners voted for someone from a planning perspective because growth was coming whether we liked it or not, or keep it more quaint, or however we wanted it. All commissioners voted 5-0 for Ms. Stathatos to come in here. And I got to tell you, from my perspective, from having the very fortunate of working with the city of Archer, the city of Hawthorne, the city of High Springs, and the city of Alachua, that she is a very, very, very great city manager. She has brought us into the positive. We started a park master plan. We've made some great decisions. Our programs from recreation were the highest in the county. And that's a testament to the commission as well as to our leader at the time. So I don't know what decision you guys should go for, but I just know that I've been watching some of the meetings and that, Mr. Stathatos, I don't like some of the criticism that you've been getting. You've done a wonderful job. And I'll just leave it at this, Miss Angela, you do a wonderful job as well. Keep that going. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? All right. So I guess the only other thing we have to do is we've set the date for looking at the top 5. So at least we've got a path forward at this point, and Thomas and Mr. Allagood and Chief Shepherd will be there, I have no doubt, to help bridge the gap, to support Ashley on a profoundly personal level. That's important. And then we'll set, I guess, maybe we can think about it for a couple weeks and decide when we want to interview at the next meeting, when we've whittled it down to 5, whether or not we want to go ahead. And, I mean, I agree with you in a lot of regards that we're here to make the hard decisions. And whether it's 4 or 5, that's why we're here.
Yeah, because my only other question about, so we're going to select the 5.
Correct. We'll
and the
rank
new
them.
person won't be a part of the selection process because we'll be already made it.
Correct.
And so they'll just have to deal with the 5 that we selected.
If we wait till that long, yes, sir. I mean, I also totally understand Commissioner Williams' perspective that there's a whole nother person, and that person will be, in a role where they're trying to direct somebody else. So, but I think that the amount of work that we have to get done and the amount of work that Ashley is trying to get done on her own right now, it can be kind of overwhelming. And I think getting her as much relief as possible, as soon as possible, is important too. So maybe at the next meeting then, we'll set forth our next path in terms of the 5, what we do. will that be, if we decided at the next meeting to set an interview date, is there a certain amount of time we have to give in between that date and setting up a special meeting? Any kind of advertisement legally that needs to be done? Okay, so we're free to do what we need to at the next meeting. Okay. All right. If there's no other comments from the audience, city attorney report and update.
Danielle's working on legislative updates, and so she'll have that out to you all. And if you see something on the legislative update, we're coming into legislative session right now. Some of the bills will pass, some won't pass, but if you see something that you want us to dive into further, then we will do that and try to give you more information and status of the bills as they walk through the legislative session, so.
You anticipate any motion on Form 6 changing?
No, I say that. No, I don't think it will.
Let me make that clear.
Substantively, I think attorneys that serve, the only carve-out I think that might happen is attorneys that serve on boards that have to file a Form 6. There may be a carve-out for
Attorney-client privilege.
because they're stuck. They can't respond, and so they have to resign, and that's a difficult spot. That's probably the only one that I think will be a carve-out, in my estimation, Madam Mayor.
City manager report and update.
Yes, the legislative days is coming up. It's on January 29th through 31st in Tallahassee. So if anyone is interested in going, we usually either go by ourselves just one day. We normally don't stay overnight. We just go for the busy day. And the Alachua League of Cities, they charter a bus. We went one year. And so we'll often do that. It's a good idea to go because we're trying to get the appropriation for the police station. But of course, we can make meetings other times as well, so it's good actually to do both. And the Alachua County Commission has reached out to have their yearly joint meeting to discuss items of mutual interest. So normally what happens is y'all submit and staff submits the items that need to be discussed. And April 4th at 2 p.m. is a suggested day and time, as well as April 18th at 6:30 p.m. It's normally been held in the evening.
That's to meet with the county commission?
Yes, you normally.
Like we did last year.
For instance, on the agenda would be the CRA expansion at the next CRA meeting. Y'all have already heard it, but there's some formalities that need to be gone through before it reaches the county. Thus far, the staff members we've talked to are pretty supportive over it, but obviously the commission will be voting. There's just like a bunch of items like that.
Can we push that back to meet with them?
That's an Angela question because she coordinates.
To us, so we can ask.
Can we ask?
Typically.
We're kind of
do
a
it in
train wreck
April.
right now. I mean, I'm just saying, like, we're kind of a train wreck. We'd like to kind of, figure out
We can.
if we're gonna be 4, 5, or 2, or none.
Sure, you want me to- we
If
can
everybody
ask.
quits,
We can
if
reach
we
out.
fire everybody, I mean, if we got broke, if we got money. I'd kind of like to figure that out before we sit down and talk about other interests.
Okay, did you want me to propose another time, or we don't have to do one?
June,
June, okay.
sometime in June if they can do it. If everybody's
Is
okay with that.
Good with everybody?
I mean, that's not my decision only.
We'll ask for June, sure.
Anything else?
Oh, no, that's all.
Okay. Mr. Henry, sir?
Short and sweet, compared to what I did last week, or last 2 weeks ago. The water meters, you probably haven't seen no action going on. They, with the holidays and everything, so they'll be up and running next week. Starting to reinstall some more water meters. I will, at the next meeting, be able to give you a better recreation report of what's going on and where we're at, because I do have a meeting with the association members, soccer and volleyball. So I'll be able to give you a lot better report where we're going. And the Douglas Center, I wish y'all go out there anytime you want to go visit it. It's moving on pretty good. All the plumbing's roughed in, all the electrical's roughed in. The AC stuff is all roughed in. So I've been taking pictures beginning, during, and then you know, when we get done, we'll have a grand opening with a big picture of it, of everything. So if anytime y'all want to go out there, just give me a holler, and I would encourage y'all to go look at it. I mean, it's going to be something really nice. I'm pretty proud of this project.
Commissioner Miller?
I would like to highlight Angela as well, because this process as a new commissioner has been very smooth because of Angela. I think she's one of the easiest people to talk to, and it's been very easy with Angela, so thank you.
I just want to invite everybody out on January the 15th for the King celebration. And if it rains, we're going to move it indoors at my church for the program. We won't do the march, but we'll go straight to the church and have the program. And Thomas, I'll get with you to make an appointment if we can go visit the center and the plant. All right, that's all I have.
I just want to echo, you guys are doing a great job. It's not easy. The positions we've put all of y'all in at this point and where we're sitting right now, it's not easy. But we absolutely, and the citizens, can see what you guys are doing, and it matters. And thank you for that, because every employee of this city right now is what's holding us together. It for sure ain't us. So I hope they hear this, and I hope somebody tells them that we can't tell them thank you enough.
I'll echo that. I'm so grateful to everybody who filled out the survey for us to help guide our path. That was really, really helpful, and it matters to us, and we don't get to hear from you guys often enough. And I'd love if we could do something like that every year, not necessarily a path forward, but how did we do this year? How did we do for the employees? Give us some feedback. What do you need that you're not getting? Because we don't talk to the employees. You know, they've got enough to do, so having that feedback was really, really, it meant a lot to me, and I read every word, and I appreciate it so much. Thomas, I appreciate you doing 7 people's job. I'm not sure when you're sleeping, and, you know, we're here to help however you need. So we've got amazing staff. Chief Shepherd, I appreciate you responding so quickly to that complaint about the vagrancy. I mean, you were on it right away. And Miss Angie, the work that she did for the Operation Holiday Cheer was off the charts. It was so much fun, and she was incredible. So thank you for letting me be part of that. And I got to send my kids a picture from the back seat of a cop car when I was riding around with you. It was a first for me, at least, so.
I could have made that happen for you.
I know you could have, but when the Chiefs got you in the back seat, it's something special, so.
At least you can get out on your own.
Yes, sir, that is true. That is true. And we're inducting our Mayor's Youth Advisory Council members on Tuesday. So we'll have our first meeting and kick off our Youth Advisory Council, and Jamie is a rock star, getting it all together, putting together an amazing agenda, and the kids are excited. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have this going. So I appreciate everything you've done on that, Jamie. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.